Hem. Hello. Hello, my minions. Welcome back. I am excited to play and read more of Umineko When They Cry. Well, I guess it was last Sunday we read some more. Yes, last Sunday. Let me see. Last time... A lot happened last time, actually. Rosa was pretty awful to her daughter, Maria. And we got, well, the most important thing was that we kind of finally feel like we're out of the preamble zone. We received Beatrice's letter, and basically we stopped almost exactly after that. Kenzo would morph out. He is morphing out. He's always morphing out. Yeah, we got Beatrice's letter. We haven't seen the lady herself yet. I thought, like, you know, oh, it's this dinner. It's about to be interrupted. We've already, you know, she already gave the umbrella to Maria. All the hints are there. She'll appear now. Never mind. It's just her letter. We only got a hint. I have no idea when this lady will actually show up. We'll just have to read and find out. I love this loading screen so much. I love a basic use of the gradient tool. Look at this gradient. Look at it. I've seen gradients like this on Newgrounds Flash games. Beautiful. It's nostalgic. So yeah, that's when we stopped. Right after everybody got the letter and Maria read it out loud. It basically said, you know, it basically explained what the rules here, which is that Beatrice is what she refers to as Kinzo's alchemist. He has essentially left everything to her unless they can solve the riddle. So she's going to take it all, the Ushiromiya family wealth and the gold, unless they can solve that crazy riddle. And she's also going to take other undisclosed things, and has already taken some things, according to the letter. We didn't see the lady herself. It was just the letter Maria read. So the game is basically afoot now. As Kinzo said, the devil's roulette has begun to spin. It's all, I think this is really where the story might actually start. Joke's on them, you will simply become Beatrice's wife and gain the inheritance that way. Smart. That is a smart maneuver. The devil's roulette has begun to spin as a fighting game phrase. Well, Umineko, you'll be pleased to know Umineko has a fighting game. I've been told I'm not allowed to play it yet because literally everything in it is a spoiler or something. I do like the tension of, like, Beatrice not showing up immediately. Like, you just get her letter. You might... We're at this point where we're not even sure if she's... 100% sure if she's real. Right? We got her... Again, nobody's actually seen her except Maria, allegedly. So, I'm interested in seeing where it goes. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, you could say. The mystery intrigues me. The strange letter that the witch had entrusted to Maria wiped all memories of dinner from our minds. Maria was repeatedly barraged with questions by Aunt Rosa and the other parents, and became increasingly ill-tempered when they refused to believe her. If we kids tried to butt in, they'd probably ignore us. Our parents were all stirred up, firing back and forth about the gold and the distribution of the assets and completely forgetting that we were even there. I'd already guessed they'd been talking like this in the shadows, but I hadn't thought they'd be so blunt. It gave all of us kids a considerable shock. From what we could overhear, all the parents wanted more money as soon as possible. Back and forth about grandfather's inheritance, back and forth about the distribution of the gold if it was found, about advance payments and cash. It was so despicable I could hardly bear to watch, even though one of them was my father. This is what we've learned so far. The theme so far we have identified from this visual novel is that all rich people are evil. It looked like Jessica felt the same way. We left our seats without being asked to and went to hang out somewhere well away from our parents.
なるほどな。じいさまが飯の席にも顔を出したくない理由がよーくわかったよ。
She has a point. If I were Kinzo, I would hate being around this family too. I mean, Kinzo's not exactly a great guy himself either, though. He's pretty evil too.
よくもまああそこまで大っぴらに。
俺の場合はクソ親父に幻滅しきってるからよ。
I already know my dad sucks.
これ以上評価の下がりようがないぜ。
そんなの私だって同じだぜ。
Oh, that's true. Her dad is Kraus. He's like even more openly evil.
しかし今夜のには呆れたぜ。心底呆れたぜ。
Jessica looked down at the floor, irritated. She was always talking about how bad her parents were, but maybe she hadn't really felt that way deep inside. The depths of Jessica's shock made that clear.
Well,
Battler's not a minor. We've established she's 18.
お金を得るというのは単純な綺麗事じゃないよ。未成年である今にそれを理解しろとは言わない。
Yeah, I don't think we need monetary advice from Kraus, who has been tasked with opening Disneyland France. And we all know how that goes.
でも、ご両親なりに何かの努力をしていることだけは認めてあげてほしいな。
Enter a man very powerful in the Disney company. Kraus Ushiromiya.
やれやれ。ジョージの兄貴は人間ができてるぜ。
ジョージ兄さんは社会人になってバリバリ働いてるけどよ。
I guess that's true. In Japan, you can only start drinking at 20, and maybe that's more of the cultural perception of adulthood.
金とか財産とかそういう話になったら、うちの親父たちみたいに強欲むき出しのハゲタカになれるってのかよ。
自分だけの話だったらそんなことはしたくないよ。
I don't know if I believe you.
家族や社員、部下やその家族の生活を
Yeah,
背負
the
ったら
Umineko universe version of Defunct
戦
Land
わな
must
けれ
go
ばならない
crazy.
時もあるかもしれない。
私はそんな戦い嫌だぜ。小さまの遺産がどうのこうのなんて話、ヘドが出るぜ。
Jessica pretended to spit violently. That harsh reaction made the depths of her pain very clear.
もうこの話はやめようぜ。じいさまの隠し黄金がどうのこうの、財産だ遺産だって話
He's got a
は
point. He's got a
俺たちの
point.
問題で俺たちの問題じゃないさ。
僕も同感だよ。せめて気を利かせて親たちの話し合いを邪魔しないのが子供の務めだと思うね。
ちぇ、なんだか面白くねえぜ。
Everyone knows the phrase adults are filthy, but we had now seen that for ourselves, and that really did give us a considerable shock. George Aniki was now pretty much an adult, and I'd already been disillusioned with my dad, so the shock wasn't that big for us. But Jessica seemed to be taking it hard. Apparently, she'd receive a bigger blow than I'd thought. She always talks badly about her parents, but it looks like she hadn't changed at all on the inside. Even now, she's still a pure-hearted, delicate person who can't doubt others. I'm sure she respected her parents as much as anyone else does. And then her parents started raging about, going, money, money, inheritance, inheritance, my money. Right in front of all the other parents and the children. It's no surprise that she received such a shock from hearing that.
ジェシカちゃん、どうかお父さんとお母さんのこ
A
とを
Kevin
嫌いに
Perjurer
ならないで
documentary on the events of Umineko as if they were real. God, that would be so good.
理解しろとまでは言わないから
I want to hear Kevin Perjurer
せめて
narrate about
どうか
Kinzo's
嫌いに
hidden
ならないであ
gold.
げて。
His hidden witch gold.
わかってるよ。少し放っておいてくれよ。
Honestly, just hearing Mr. Defunctland read out the Umineko riddle, the riddle on the painting's epitaph would be perfect. He could I can I just need him to read that. 6 years ago, I would have kept taunting Jessica even after she got all dejected. But I guess we really have grown over the last 6 years. Battler's like, I'm so mature now. I don't keep teasing my family to the breaking point. I realized that it'd be better to leave Jessica alone right now. Jessica suddenly looked away sulkily and left the parlor. She probably wanted to be alone for a while. I could do nothing but wordlessly watch her back as she left.
そういえばマリアちゃんはどこに行ったんだろ
That is a good question.
多分まだ肖像画の前でいじけてるんだろうぜ。
Maria truly looked up to witches, and she'd expected that coming in direct contact with Beatrice and receiving the letter as proof would surprise everyone and make them happy. However, the adults had doubted its authenticity, thoroughly bombarding Maria with questions and refusing to accept her story. Even for me, it wasn't hard to imagine how much that must have hurt Maria. We couldn't speak to Maria or Jessica. In the end, Georgianiki and I just abandoned ourselves to the sound of the falling rain in the dark night.
う。台風はどんな感じなんだろうね。
Maria's out here standing Bito. You can't be too mean to her about her hyperfixations, okay?
ニュースをやってないかな。
Georgianiki started walking over to the corner of the parlor where the television was. He hadn't called me over, and I really couldn't have cared less whether the typhoon was on the sea now. So without going over to the television, I loitered around the window.
そんなに風は出てなさそうだけど
Bito is the Vriska of Umineko. I'm not even a person who knows about Homestuck, and that feels like a really toxic thing to say.
天気予報では暴風警報も聞いてたんだけど
キリエさんか。
I don't know if the typhoon's exactly
大人たちの積
magical,
もる話
Metavok.
は
They
どん
talked
な
about
感
how
じ
it
なん
was
すか？
coming from like the very beginning. Like it was expected. She seemed to catch the sarcasm. Kyrie-san shrugged.
この胃の痛くなる話は徹夜で続くのかしら嫌になるわ
まあせいぜいよろしく。じいさまの財産分配についてハゲタカごっこをお楽しみくださいってんだ。
Vriska fans are cis and Bito fans are trans. I don't know about that. Again, I don't know much about Umineko, but like every Homestuck, like of large, not insignificant percentage of Homestuck people or like lapsed Homestuck fans I know are trans.
最低の気分だぜ。
それに関しては
That's a
同感
funny
よ
face you're making, Kyrie. She looks very smug.
バトラ君みたいに席が外せるなら私もそうしたいわでもそうもいかないたとえ発言権がなくてもねパートナーも大変よ
Kyrie-san took a deep breath, smiling bitterly. That's fair to her. I'd also hate being anywhere near Rudolph. Rudolph seems like he's covered in slime all the time. That's right. They probably won't let Kyrie-san speak since she only married into the family. Still, as Dad's partner, she had no choice but to stay by his side and support him. She's probably had to bear the full brunt of his mental pressure much more than me. Kono pressure. I wasn't going to apologize, but realizing that I'd been spoken to harshly, I cut the sarcasm for the time being.
どんな感じなんすか？相変わらず謎の魔女ベアトリーチェの話題で持ちきりですか？
Beatrice.
まあねあの人たちはおじい様が亡くなった時の遺産分配について兄弟4人で話をまとめようとずっと密約を重ねてきたそこへ未知の5人目が現れて話をややこしくしようっていうんだから穏便な話のわけもないわ
That's true.
互いを罵り合ったりかと思えば共闘しようってことになったり夏日姉さんでなくても頭痛がしてくるところよ
On the one hand, they all wanted a larger portion than the other siblings, so they're all rivals. But on the other hand, they don't want 1 yen to be snatched up by anyone other than the siblings, so they're also all allies. Wow, this really is Knives Out. I hadn't been told the details, but the siblings were apparently discussing how to protect their shares under various situations, setting up ceasefire agreements and rules to prevent anyone from getting an unfair advantage, even preparing to resort to legal action if absolutely necessary. That they would go this far to preserve their shares was so beyond disgusting that you just had to acknowledge their resilience.
ってことは、さしずめ。ベアトリーチはじい様からの資格ってとこですかね。
Gotta corner Rian Johnson at some point and ask him if he was inspired. I wouldn't, I honestly wouldn't be completely surprised.
自分抜きで遺産の分配なんて話を勝手に進めてた息子たちに一泡吹かせたかったんだろうぜ。
何者かしらね、ベアトリーチェ。
She's a very interesting lady, I'm sure.
自称してることが全て本当なら、今日まで誰にも知られずにいた謎の人物で、しかもおじい様の隠し黄金の存在を知っていて、
My gold!
その上当主の指輪まで委ねられている。相当に信頼された人物ね。
さすがにほうきにまたがった魔女だとは思わないっすけど、でも魔女と呼ぶに値する怪人物であることは
Yeah,
間違いないっすね。
being a witch isn't so much about the power, it's about the theatricality. It's about the performance.
マリアちゃんが
I understand
そのあたりの
this.
ことを詳
I
しく
understand
話してくれ
this.
ればいいのだけど、みんな小さい子にがっつきすぎだわ。すっかり怯えてしまって聞けるものも聞けなくなってしまった。あの人たち北風と太陽とか読んだことないのかしら。
I've never read that, so I don't understand this
確かな
reference.
のはマリアがベアトリーチェと名乗る人物から手紙を受け取ったこと。自分で現れて直接話せばいいものを手紙を託して今もどこか
I
に
think
身を潜めている
Beatrice is
って
already
い
in the
う
walls.
シャイな怪人物ですけどね。
I don't know if it's a real book. I've never heard of it. When does Daniel Craig come into the scene? God, I hope. I hope he's doing a funny southern accent.
ベアトリーチェなんて人物が本当にいると思う？
さあ、あくまでも偽名じゃないっすかね。じい様の代理人としてその妄想の中の魔女の名を名乗ることを許されたとか。
ううん、そうじゃなくて、今この六軒島には全部で18人いるの。19人目が存在すると思う？
Are there really a full 18 people on this island right now? Wondering about that, I began counting on my fingers, and it really did come out to that many. Spooky mystery music. Kraus looks like the villain of every middling 2000 shonen anime in his pachinko art. To me, he just looks like Geese Howard, without his hair slicked back. North sun and cold winds is a fable. It's kind of equivalent to saying you catch more flies with honey rather than vinegar. Oh, okay. Now I understand. Thank you for explaining that. Chat member Sweet Creamy. What's the Japanese accent they tend to localize as American Southerner? Isn't it, Kansai? I think it's Kansai. Kanto, not Kansai. Or Osakan. Okay, I got 3 answers. I got Kanto, Osakan, and Kansai. There's like, whatever the one they assigned to, Labris in Persona 4, where she's got like a Boston accent. That one's more like, I think that one's meant to be Osaka. Oh, Labris was also Kansai? Okay, well, they're, I don't know, they're all over the place with that one, I guess.
どういう意味ですか？
言葉通りの意味よ。マリアちゃんに傘を貸した人物は私たち18人の
Yeah,
中にはいな
Maria
い
did
ら
have
し
to
い。
get that umbrella from someone.
なら19人目がいて、その人物がマリアちゃんに傘を貸したと思うのが妥当じゃない？
ま、そうなりますね。
ならその人物は今どこにいるの？
Yeah, I guess Kansai just means they have a weird dialect. Sometimes it's southern, sometimes it's Boston. In the localization of Trails of Cold Steel, they did Scottish for the Kansai character? That's very weird.
そしてその後はどんどん天気が悪化して、とても船なんか出せない状態となれば、その人物はまだ島の中にいて、
Right, yeah, nobody
どこかで
can
雨宿りをしていなくてはならない。
nobody can leave or come to the island.
私たち誰の目にも触れずね。
確かに。俺た
Because
ち
of
は
the storm.
屋敷やゲストハウスの中を勝手にうろつき回ってましたが、誰も19人目なんかには会ってないわけですよね。
P5 Arena better be real. That's all I want from this Persona anniversary year. I just want Persona 5 Arena.
でもまあ、これだけの広さのある島ですし、屋敷やゲストハウス以外に雨宿りできるところだってあるのかも。
Yeah, that was Sho Asmodem. He's the guy with red hair and the scar. At about this time, I began to realize what direction Kyrie-san's suspicions were taking us in. Kyrie-san was denying that a 19th person existed. Beatrice was one of us 18. In other words, she thought someone we knew well was tricking us. Oh, I see.
ベアトリーチェが自称する通りなら、その人物は間違いなく最高の賓客よ。
I am also looking forward to Persona 4 Arena getting rollback this summer. I will definitely play it
おじい
then.
様が信頼する最高の腹心。そんな人物をおじい様が歓待しないわけがない。お屋敷に迎え入れないわけはないのよ。でも私たちは誰も見ていない。
待ってくださいよ。それはちょいと請求な推理じゃないですか。確かに誰の目にも触れてはいないけれど、だからって19人目を否定することにはならないんじゃないですか。何かの理由があってこっそり上陸してずっと隠
Yeah,
れて
they
い
could
る
have
のか。
landed on the island a long time ago. You know, before everyone even. And have just been hiding out. Big island.
悪魔の証明ってやつです
Devil's
よ。
proof.
いることを証明するのはたやすい。ベアトリーチェってやつが俺たちの前に現れて挨拶すりゃ解決する。でも19人目がいないことを証明するのは
Yeah, you
不可能っすよ。
can't prove a negative.
バトラ君の推理の仕方は悪くないわ。
I love how she's like, you're surprisingly smart.
現在の状況では19人目の存在を認めるにも否定するにも情報が足りない。でもね、チェス盤をひっくり返して考えると、ほぼ19人目はありえないって断言できちゃうのよ。
Spin the chessboard around was one of Kyrie-san's favorite phrases. I think Ryukishi just likes chess. I've been influenced by those words and used them myself from time to time. When you get stuck trying to find a move in chess or shogi, then by spinning the board around and looking at everything from your opponent's standpoint, you can often see a strategy that'll give you the upper hand. It means turning things around and putting yourself in your opponent's shoes.
いい？
Oh, is spin the chessboard something I'm going to be hearing a lot? Yeah, I can already tell that's a catchphrase, isn't it? We're going to go to Edgeworth's chess dimension from Investigations.
仮に19人目の人物としてベアトリーチェが実在したとして、その人物は誰にも知られることなくこっそりとこの島に上陸し、ずっと隠れていた。何かの理由があってね。ならどうしてわざわざ姿を現してマリアちゃんに手紙を渡したの？
It's about the drama. It's about the theatricality. It really was a contradiction. If they had some reason for hiding themselves, then they should have stayed hidden the whole time. But even so, they had appeared openly in front of Maria.
それはほらマリアも言ってた。メッセンジャーにされたって言ってたじゃないですか。
Messenger. If Phoenix and Ryanosuke can become lawyers, Battler can become a detective. I don't know. Battler seems uniquely stupid compared to Phoenix and
マリ
Ryanosuke.
アが一番年下で素直そうだったからじゃ。
メッセンジャーなんて必要なの？
But I guess Battler does sort of fulfill the more noir detective style, which is a guy who's not necessarily like Holmes style educated, but someone who's more determined. It's not about being smart so much as it is having tenacity.
手紙を親族会議の席上に送りたかったら郵送すればいいだけの話よ。4人の兄弟全員に郵送すれば黙殺することもできない。手紙を持参してこっそり手渡す理由がないのよ。
確かになんだかおかしな話っすね。
It is pretty weird.
そもそもベアトリーチェが存在していてその存在をアピールしたいならみんなの前に堂々と姿を現せばいいだけの話なのに現れずマリアちゃんという小さな子を通しておぼろげな輪郭だけでその存在を主張しようとす
I
る
always say you should build the sense of tension and dread in your enemies. I think Beatrice is just a very smart lady
矛盾
who likes theatricality. I understand her vision.
マリアちゃんの前に姿を現し19人目の存在を印象づけるという点と今この瞬間も私たちの前に姿を現さ
She's
ず
in the walls.
隠れ続けている点これらの矛盾これを念頭に置いた上でチェス盤をひっくり返すのつまり19人目の人物としてベアトリーチェがいると印象づけたい人物の目論見は何かよ
姿を隠したい人物ならその存在をアピールするわけがない。そして姿を現したい人物なら手紙を託すなんて遠回しをするわけがないってことは
簡単よ
Kantai?
ベアトリーチェは18人の中にいるのよ
So Kyrie thinks one of the people here is quote unquote Beatrice.
だからこそ18人以外の人物が存在するような幻想を作り
They're
出しているの
pretending
よ
They're pretending to be
これ見よが
Beatrice.
ちな19人目のアピールそれで得をするのは姿を潜めた19人目じゃないすでにいる18人の方なのよもちろんこの推理は穴だらけ
I don't really know what I'm
いくつか
talking
の前
about.
提がひっくり返るだけですぐに崩れる脆いものだけど私はほぼ間違いないと見てるわ
This is starting to feel pretty creepy. Someone lent Maria the umbrella and handed her the letter. Supposedly, none of the 18 did this. And yet, Beatrice was hidden among those 18. Among... What was this person planning, hiding their true form and pretending to be Beatrice? We're gonna find the person who's sus.
マリアちゃんの自作自演も疑ったんだけど文章の内容が
I
非
suspect-
常に手が込んでてマリアちゃんが自前で用意したとは考えがたいでもマリアちゃんが何者かと共謀している可能性も否定できないわ
おいおいマリアは9歳のお子様だぜ誰と何を共謀するってんだよしかも愚直で真面目で素直なあの性分だぜ
ええ私もマリアちゃんの性分はよく理解して
Yeah,
いる
all you'd
の
have to do is tell her, hey, I'm the witch, and she'd be
Demo,
like, that's
dakara
cool,
koso
I'm gonna do whatever you say.
魔女に憧れその存在を盲信している夢見がちな少女そこにベアトリーチェと名乗る人物が現れて魔女だと名乗ったら彼女はそれを大喜びで鵜呑みにして信じるんじゃないかしら
つまりあの肖像画のごついドレスを着て変装すればマリアを騙すことは難しくないと
その論法になっちゃうと私たち女性陣はみんな疑われちゃうことになるんだけどねとにかくマリアちゃんが何者に出会っ
It's true, I don't think many of the guys here are pretty enough to pull it off.
それの詳細を聞くことがこの謎を解く一番にして最も身近な鍵なのよ しその鍵は少女の心の奥に堅くなに閉ざされてしまったわ。みんなが頭ごなしに魔女の存在を否定し、一体その人物は誰なのかと問い詰めすぎた。マリアちゃんは当分大人には心を開かないでしょうね。
Yeah, you scared her off. In the dim hall, in front of the portrait of Beatrice, Maria was sobbing. Ugh.
誰もね、マリアがベアトリーチェに会ったことを信じてくれない。ベアトリーチェとくれた手紙も見せたのに、それでも信じてくれない。
I guess we'll have to make them somehow. I like this spooky music. Very
とに
ominous.
かく鍵はマリアちゃんが握ってるわ。
Oh,
ベ
it's
アトリ
over.
ーチェが18人の中にいるのか19人目なのか、それを知る鍵をね。
I feel like it's gonna get really hard to get that out of Maria.
マリアは頑固だぜ。あいつへそを曲げるとなかなか機嫌を直さないからな。
大人の私より子供のバトラ君の方が機嫌を直せる確率は
Like,
高そうよ。
he's just gonna ask her, did it look like Beatrice? And then she's gonna be like, yeah.
彼女の機嫌が直ったら聞いてみて。
Which will not solve the question.
遺産分配がどうのこうのって話には関心ないけど、こんな王道洋館ミステリーみたいなシチュエーションには
It is a little
ワクワ
bit
クしちゃうわ。
exciting. It's a little
マ
bit
リア
fun.
ちゃ
I
ん
love
に
a
手
good
紙を
mystery.
渡した人物は一体誰なのか。知的好奇心がうずくわ。
うんざりするような金の話に付き合わされてもワクワクとは実にタフなことだぜ。大人はすげえや。
I shrugged exasperatedly, but I did notice something. Kyrie noticed how dejected I was after overhearing our parents' turbulent discussion, and was probably trying to clear the air. At the very least, I'd recovered enough to voice my complaints. She wasn't my real mother, so I've never felt like calling her mom, but it did make me think she's a real adult.
おうガキども、ここにいたのか。
Kyrie seems like one of the nicer people here.
キリエも長え化粧直しじゃねえか。俺も次からは化粧をしてくることにするぜ。
ごめんなさい。
No, you would look terrible in it.
女の化粧は長いのよ。どう？兄弟水入らずの話し合いは。
さぞや和気あいあいとしてるだろうよ。
Kyrie-san poked the weak spot under my arm with her elbow.
一度頭を冷やそうってことで小休止さ。
I'm sure that'll clear the air really well.
こりゃ夜通し
Everybody will come back refreshed, ready to fight over inheritance money again.
泣けてくれ。
His way of talking hadn't changed, but he couldn't completely hide his fatigue. I couldn't say I was sympathetic, but he looked pitiful compared to his normal energetic self.
しかしひでえ雨だな。ゲストハウスに戻るのも嫌になるぜ。夏日姉さんが屋敷で泊まれるよう準
That
備
was
してくれたら
nice
し
of
い。
her.
どうする？
3階になった時に考えてもいいんじゃない？部屋に戻る体力もなくなってたら、その時はお世話になりましょうよ。
そうだな。その時に考えりゃいいか。バトラーはどうする？
俺がいちゃお邪魔だろうからよ。気使って向こうに戻るぜ。
そうか。すぐ戻るのか。
I'm sure nothing bad will happen
じゃあ
tonight.
な。一人で戻ったって寂しいしよ。子供全員で揃って帰ることにするぜ。
そうだな。そうするといい。それで、バトラー、
Yeah, they're going to sleep.
お前、今夜はそうは簡単には寝ないだろ
多分いとこたちとおしゃべりしてるだろうからな。夜更かししそうな気配はあるぜ。それがどうかしたのかい？
う。そうか。もし、大人たちの会議が終わってお前がまだ起きてたら、
Oh boy, I'm sure that'll be a great father-son heart-to-heart.
なんだよ。柄にもねえな。
That's not a flag at all. Apparently, Kyrie-san was thinking the same thing. What are you talking about? She asked him in a small voice. It looked like Kyrie-san didn't have a clue what Dad meant either.
キリエにも聞いてもらいたい話だ。後で話すから。
I have something really important to tell you, but I can't tell you until later. This isn't a red flag at all. I don't know anyone who neglects the concept of family as much as this old bastard. And now he's saying we're gonna have a talk as a family. Both Kyrie-san and I couldn't help but get wide-eyed.
そうビビった顔すんなよ。ビビりてえのは俺の方なんだ。何しろ。
At that point, he swallowed his words for an instant. Even though putting on airs of importance wasn't much like my dad.
気持ち悪いぜ親父。
Stop being weird. Say you don't love me anymore again or something.
今家
That's
族は全
normal.
員揃ってるじゃねえかよ。
I also like Kyrie's face. It's very smug.
俺は多分今夜殺されるだろう。
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad he's aware of his death flags. There was a huge crash of thunder. It must have been really close. Dad's expression, brightly illuminated by the lightning, was burned into my eyes. Dad's face, which always looked so sure of itself and which always wore a taunting expression, was strangely frail in a way I couldn't really explain. It was so worn out that he looked like a different person.
はは
Nani?
何言ってんだよ、ガルでもね。
同感よ。どうしたの？急に弱気ね。あなたらしくもない。
俺も化粧直しに行ってくる。
I will not elaborate.
つい
Goodbye.
てくんなよ。
Dad turned away weakly. After that, only Kyrie and I were left, still wide-eyed.
なんだってんだ。今夜殺される？まさか。あの妙な手紙のせいで
That's a really funny
親父
Battler face
ビビっ
too.
ちまったのか。連続殺人者の映画の見過ぎだぜ。
Kyrie-san didn't answer my light-hearted words and continued to stare at my dad's disappearing back.
バトラ君はルドルフさんに今話せと言ったら話さず立ち去った。
He sure did.
みんなに話すことがあると言い出しながら答えなかった。どうして？チェス盤をひっくり返す。すると
話すと言っておきながら話せない矛盾。なんすかね。親父側から見ると何か見えてきますか？
ええ、見えるわよ。話したいことがある。でも自分から言い出す勇気がない。
Yeah, he's just a wimp.
だから追ってきて俺に話しかけて聞き出してくれが正解ね。
Ah, you gotta corner him.
ついてくるなも逆の意味よ。ついてきて俺を問い詰めてくれが正解。
You gotta bully him into giving up the answer.
まったく甘えん坊さんなんだから。
そういう推理でいいんすか？そんなんめちゃ
Does
くち
seem
ゃ
a
な
little bit silly.
名探偵や名刑事が男女の気持ちや心を推理できる？できないでしょ？
Well, I don't know.
異
Maybe.
性の気持ちを探るのは何次元のトリックを暴くよりはるかに高度な技術なのよ。私に言わせれば名作推理小説より恋愛小説の方がよっぽど難解なミステリーなんだから。
I don't know. That seems a little. That seems like a bit of an over-exaggeration.
そういうもんすかね。
私はあの甘えん坊さんと一緒にいるわ。普段は虚勢を張ってるけど今夜はかなりの激論で疲れ切ってる。
He's all tuckered out. He needs a
誰か
nap.
に寄りかかりたい気持ちなんでしょうね。それに応えるのがパートナーの役目よ。
はあ、そりゃお熱いことで。
He's just glad it wasn't him who has to talk to his dad,
じゃあ、うちのクソ親父の世話を
which is
よろしく
valid.
頼みますよ。
ええ、任せておいて。
I called out to Kyrie-san's departing back.
何？
いや、ありがとよって。おかげで陰鬱な気分がだいぶ晴れたぜ。
ならよかった。
Yokatta.
コミュニケーションは大事ね。
I like how she said it in English. Communication. After answering with a wink, Kyrie-san followed after Dad. Natsui could be found in a dimly lit hallway. Now and then the thunder would crash, but this had no effect on Natsuhi's expression. She looked completely worn out. The discussion that had just taken place between the relatives in the dining hall was repeating itself inside Natsuhi's mind. Beatrice had reclaimed that in addition to the gold, all the inheritance and property of the Ushiromiya family would be given to the person who could solve the riddle. In other words, she planned to undermine the absolute guarantee that Kraus, as the oldest brother, had to succeed the family head. Originally, the other siblings had absolutely no chance to inherit the headship. To them, this proposal by Beatrice was extremely desirable. It was obvious that they would accept it. There was no need to play some clumsy detective game. Natsuhi knew that this so-called 19th person, Beatrice, could not exist. Naturally, Beatrice was nothing more than a fictional character used to pass a message that Kinzo had written himself. As proof, Kinzo had remained stubbornly neutral as to that letter's authenticity. He was completely ignoring these reckless claims that he shouldn't be able to ignore, that he had given up the heads ring. In short, Kinzo had wordlessly admitted that the letter held his own message. Well, we know that's not true, because he threw it out the window. Most likely, one of the servants had given Maria the letter. Kinzo had probably worked out an elaborate plan where the dress from the portrait would be prepared. And someone, probably Shannon, would be made to wear it and deliver the letter and the umbrella. But doing that, she could make it seem like the witch from the portal actually existed. No, if anything, that alone was proof that Kinzo was behind all this. In that case, it was the same as Kinzo trying to butt in on the siblings' private discussion. Then Kinzo, by announcing that he'd given everything to the person who solved the riddle, could weaken Krause's overwhelming advantage. Now it was certain. Kinzo had eavesdropped on the siblings' discussion in the parlor earlier that day. So he had common knowledge. So he had known how Krause had staved off the attack by the other three. And to make the scales of the battle go back into balance, he had sent out this strange letter which benefited Krause's rivals. He was trying to push this crazy theory so that Rosa, who had a weak position among the siblings because of her age, would join with Eva and Rudolph. Then, with a 3-to-1 advantage, they'd be able to overwhelm Krause yet again and make their ridiculous theories get accepted by force. And by doing that, he gave them the power to resettle what had once been a nearly decided conflict. They had now started repeatedly pressing Krause to pay them a large sum of money. Using the condition that all the siblings would guarantee Krause's position as the successor, talk about advance payments was being brought up again despite having been rejected once. Of course, even without the story about the hidden gold, the Ushiromiya's family stores of wealth was vast. That store of wealth alone was more than enough. Even if the hidden gold was buried forever along with Kinzo's death, it would be more than enough to... Excuse me. There would be more than enough to satisfy. Sorry, I had a little sleepy yawn. Therefore, even if they weren't that interested in the gold itself, Kinzo had managed to instill the lifelong fear that, on the off chance that someone found the gold, that person would be granted the headship. And this kind of Achilles heel would definitely be taken advantage of by someone sooner or later. The only person with this fatal weakness was the successor, Krause. The other siblings had found... Oh, Genrora, thank you for following. Welcome to the Rose Rabbit Army. You can begin your servitude right now. No, they had been told by Kinzo about something that only Krause could lose, and they had thoroughly taken advantage of that. Natsuhi, as Krause's only ally in this painful position, and as his wife, wanted to fight alongside him. You're really not required to do that. I think you should dump him. She kept trying to explain to him that the existence of the gold itself was a farce, and there was no need for him to compromise. Krause had always told Natsuhi. He had told all of the siblings. He always said that the hidden gold was nothing more than an illusion created by Kinzo. Therefore, Natsui had believed it as his wife, and had supported her husband on that foundation. Even so, Natsuhi's words didn't reach Kraus. Even though Natsuhi had fought so hard and had lent all of her strength, he continued to fight by himself and was trying to compromise with the other three siblings. Natsuhi sadly and weakly wondered why she could not be of use to him, then started getting angry. It had happened when everyone decided to take a short break to cool their heads. Natsuhi had flared up again against Kraus. Enraged, she had asked why she could not be useful to him. He had then told her that he wanted to talk about something and invited her to enter a room she was normally not allowed to enter. That room had been sealed with a heavy-looking padlock, and just looking at it had given her an uncomfortable feeling. What's in the room? What's in the room?
他の3人の言うことも、ベアトリーチェを名乗る不審人物の言うことも、何も気にかけることはありません。黄金など所詮はお父様が生み出したまやかし。それを見つけられることなど
The
あるわ
ruse
けはない。
cruise.
あなたが後継ぎであることは盤石です。
You think so?
何を恐れることがあるのです。
Kraus removed the padlock on the door. He then motioned for Natsuhi to enter.
入りたまえ。
何ですか？
What is this place?
見せたいものがある。君に初めて見せるものだ。
Natsuhi timidly opened the door with a dubious expression on her face. It was pitch black. She searched for a switch to turn on the lights, but since this was her first time in the room, she didn't know where it was. Kraus entered behind her, pushing her in, and when he closed the door before turning on the lights, the two were swallowed up by the darkness. Only the sound of Kraus locking the door rang out through the dark.
これは何事ですか？明かりは？
今つける。待ちたまえ。
Lights. Just as he said, when Kraus pushed a switch on the wall, a flickering light turned on and lifted up the room.
それは。
Natsuhi had her breath taken away. The room had no windows, and at a glance it appeared to be empty. In the middle of the room, a small round table had been set, and the lights brightened only that table, as if it were leading the part in a play. On top of the table, a red tablecloth of elaborate design had been set out, covered with dust, and on top of that, something about the size of a grown man's arm had been set down. That something took Natsuhi's breath away. Ooh. Oh shit, it's one of the gold bars.
凄まじい純度を持つ黄金のインゴット。
Oh, the gold bars are real.
こいつがなければ誰も
The One Piece is real! It was an ingot of solid gold. Even in the faint light, it sparkled with a noble and dignified glint.
こいつはまともなインゴットじゃない。
Yeah, imagine if the reaction if it was one of those chocolate bars, like a Toblerone.
このインゴットを鋳造したのが国内なのか国外なのか。
It's just a Toblerone in
それす
there.
らも私にはわからない。
It took a high level of skill to make the purest of solid gold ingots. And in order to verify that purity, it was standard to have the original foundry and the name of the bank that guaranteed it imprinted on the gold. However, this ingot did not have that kind of seal. This mysterious gold bar had come from an unknown foundry.
ここを見たまえ。怯えることはない。こいつはただの金塊だ。
It's not like it's cursed or anything. Natsuhi, following Kraus's words, timidly approached the ingot.
そこだ。
Sotoda. Kraus pointed at the surface of the ingot. Natsuhi concentrated on that section. What? Right there was the thin imprint of the one-winged angel crest. Da-da-da. Natsuhi's breath was taken away once again.
そうだよ。
そうだよ。
親父がベアトリーチェに与えられたといい、保証人のマルソーの会長に任意
Where did he find it?
抜き取らせて持ち帰らせ、財界のフィクサーたちを信用させたと。
Where did he find it?
工房に手を
Where did Kraus get the gold bar?
他の兄弟たちより早くね。
そんな。じゃあ お父様の黄金伝説は
Yes, that's right. It's real.
実在する。後ろ宮金蔵が授けられたベアトリーチの黄金は実在するのだよ。
そんな
So nah.
本当
It
に
does.
あるなんて
Natsuki was shocked. Kraus had always said that Kenzo's gold was just a fabrication. So she had believed it as his wife. Oh, that was a dumb idea. I don't think you should believe most of what Kraus says. However, the reality was different. Since he had held definite proof, he had been more certain than any of the other siblings that the legend of the gold was true. Because of this, Kraus was deeply frightened at the possibility that someone other than himself would find the gold he'd failed to find, costing him everything. But to Natsuhi, this truth was more than enough to split open her heart. She had thought that as Kraus's wife, she should be his closest confidant, which was why she had selflessly supported him. Well, that was a silly idea, you silly lady. Come on, just look at him. And yet, he had hid this fact from her until today. Why?
そこまでに私はあなたの信頼に足りないというのですか。
そういうつもりはない。
Mm,
話す必要がなかっただけだ。
you just didn't ask.
あなたにとっては妻はその程度のものなのですか。
Yes.
落ち着きたまえ。劇場にすぐ駆られるのは君の悪い癖だ。
Kraus is just like, straight up, calm down, your womanly passions are flaring up.
あなたがそうさせてるんじゃないですか。私は後ろ宮家に嫁ぎ、今日まであなたの妻として仕えてきま
Kraus
し
is
た。
definitely the kind of guy who tells women to just calm down.
あなたのために生まれた家を捨て、身も心も捧げてお仕えしてきました。その報いがこれなんですか。そんなことって。
Kraus grimaced, looking annoyed. His expression effectively communicated how much he disliked this part of Nazi, even if he didn't say it out loud.
私はもうあなたの力になれそうもありません。
うん。それでいい。兄弟のトラブルを私が自分の力で解決する。君の力は借り。
I don't need you anymore. Women are disposable to me.
違います。これは後ろ宮家のトラブルです。確かに私にはこの身に家紋を刻むことが許されていません。でもあなたの妻です。なのに私には力添えする資格もないのですか。あなた。
君を思えばこそ、あえて関わら
He's
せる。
he's literally about to say, well, I couldn't trust you getting involved because you would just get, you know, your womanly passions would flare up and you'd tell
これ
everyone.
以上は頭痛に触るだろう。君は今夜はこれで休みたまえ。兄弟の
I can't trust a
話を兄
woman.
弟でつける。君は関係ない。それだけだ。
F. A dull headache tormented Natsuhi. No matter what medicine she took, no matter what scent she burned, it wouldn't heal. In fact, simply wandering alone through the dark corridors and listening to the sound of the rain seemed to be a better cure. I may be Natsuhi, but I was never Ushiromiya Natsuhi. I had been despised and treated as a borrowed womb, and insulted even when I couldn't even fill that role. Even so, I've tried to properly perform my duties as a wife, but now even my husband has rejected me. Kraus is the kind of guy to think female orgasms are a myth. That's so true. He definitely doesn't. Women don't have orgasms. My wife has never had one. I've done my best raising my daughter, as if it were the last job left to me. However, I've been a release for my anger and sadness, and they've caused me to subconsciously strain that relationship too. Because I've been excessively strict in Jessica's education, she dislikes me thoroughly. She despises me for having no interest in anything but grades. There is no longer anything I can do for the Ushiromiya family. No, that's no good. Despite it all, I must help my husband and beat back the schemes of the other greedy siblings. The family head won't be around much longer. Eventually Kraus will succeed the head. And the next successor will be Jessica. Yo, head? Strictly speaking, the man who enters the family by marrying Jessica will become the next head, but it all comes to the same thing. I have to make Jessica an excellent successor whom everyone will accept as worthy to take over the Ushiromiya family. In the days to come, that greedy Ushiromiya Eva will probably be plotting to find some fault with the main family. And if all goes as she plans, Jessica will be dragged down from the succession with George set up in her place. It is regrettable, but George is a man, and even more, he has matured as a person. Compared to Jessica, who is right in the middle of her rebellious period, and whose grades are slightly below average, it can be seen at a glance who is more fit to succeed as the head. So in order to secure Jessica's position, I need to turn her into an excellent person. After doing that, I want to find her an excellent husband, worthy of the excellent person she will become. A wonderful man who will truly accept Jessica and stay with her through all of life's joys and sorrows. The feminine urge to wander through a mansion at the middle of the night while it's raining and having dark thoughts, yes. Was Natsuhi trying to entrust her daughter with fulfilling some desire of her own? Natsuhi thought back to the days when she'd had no choice but to marry into the Ushiromiya family because of that unavoidable fate. She had tried to block that from her memory. She had consciously forgotten it, and had actively attended to the life she'd been given as Ushiromiya Natsuhi. Ah! Sorry, I'm so full of yawns today. Ah! And in doing so, she had built up a new life. But just now, it felt like all of that had been casually rejected. I have accomplished nothing. This whole family thinks my life is meaningless. Natsuhi helplessly rested her head against the glass of the window. The glass, which was cool thanks to the raindrops beating against it, felt somehow refreshing. Even though it should have been emotionless, right then it seemed to be the only thing that could understand Natsuhi. At that point, even if someone had appeared, Natsuhi didn't intend to pay any attention to them. Sorry, it was a loud yawn, I apologize. I'm full of sleepy boy energy. That's how my day's been. But she did pay attention. Because it was her beloved daughter. Meanwhile... Oh, never mind. This is the same moment. I thought we were going somewhere else. Yeah, it's... The rain ambience is definitely helping my sleepy mood. Rain always makes me feel like comfy. Just like always, her words were rough and not at all like a girl's. Instinctively, words of rebuke rose to Natsuhi's throat. However, their strength gave out and they didn't escape her lips. Jessica? Jessica was seeing her mother in a position of feebleness for the first time, so she was considerably disconcerted. Until just now, she'd been filled with contempt for all of the parents, including her mother. But now, those feelings had been completely swept away. Her mother's utterly exhausted face had wiped them all out. In its place, the words of George had told her floated back up in her mind. Our parents are doing their best in their own way, and because of their families are counting on them, they can't afford to keep everything pleasant and have a heavy responsibility to fight. Maybe her mother had been standing around in this dimly lit hallway because no one had tried to understand that in her. Jessica hated her mother, so she had no intention of speaking kindly to Natsuhi just because she was looking a bit frail. So when she attempted to speak kindly to her mother anyway, she had to clench her fists and gather up the words from deep in her heart. Doesn't really sound like something reassuring, that just sounds like making conversation. Alright, good job, Natsuhi. You're really winning her, you're winning her over, so you're really doing a good job winning your daughter over.
私薬もらってこようか。
構わないで結構です。お願いだから一人きりにして。
Leave me alone. Natsuki wasn't being cold. She just wanted her daughter to go far away so that she wouldn't have to bump against Natsuki's own short temper. But there was no chance that Jessica would realize this. Jessica hung her head, looking sad. Seeing that expression, Natsuki recognized the kindness that Jessica was trying to muster. She gave her head a small shake to drive away her own unkind feelings.
じゃあ私行くよ。
Good job, you
お寺
idiot.
の邪魔にならないようにいとこたちと一緒にいるから。じゃあ。
お待ちなさい。
There we go. She called Jessica, who was trying to leave and looked lonely, to a stop.
何？
気遣いをありがとう。お前を残して寝込むわけにはいきません。
よせよ。
Now,
縁起でも
now,
ないぜ。
oh boy, more death flags.
心配をかけました。もう大丈夫です。私は行きます。
If I let my daughter see me this feeble any longer, I'll only make her feel more uneasy. With that thought in mind, Natsuki left Jessica with words of gratitude and made to depart. This time, Jessica called out to her mother's back. Natsuki stopped and turned around, asking what business Jessica had with her. But Jessica herself didn't know why she'd stopped her mother, and for a while she smiled wryly, muttering to herself as she hesitated over what to say. She was poking around in her pocket when her hand touched something, and she took it out. Uh-oh, what's
あ
this?
のさ、母さん。私さ、今日お守りもらったんだよ。なんだっけな。迷ってな
Oh,
かったっけ？
the charm Maria made.
確かそのドアノブにぶら下げてるといいんだっけ。あ忘れちまったぜ。私が持ってても仕方ないし、母さんにあげるよ。
It was the scorpion charm that Maria had given her on the beach. Although she'd heard of its various effects from Maria, Jessica's mind had gone blank, and she was just barely able to say even that much. Jessica, thinking that her mother probably wouldn't accept it anyway, immediately drew back the hand she had stuck out, grasping the charm. So when Natsuki came back to take it, she was extremely shocked.
これは何かの景品？
まあその私も多分そう
Yeah,
だろうと思って
you
る
had to
けど
humor
な。
Maria. You don't have to humor it when she's not around.
こんなおもちゃみたいなお守りじゃご利益は期待できねえよな。
But her mother took the charm from where she grasped it in her
あ
hand.
りがとう。
Arigato.
大切にします。ジェシカには今度私が子供の頃大切にしていたお守りを代わりにあげましょう。
別にそんなつもりで渡すんじゃないぜ。でもまあどうしてもっていうなら。
では
Okay,
私は
fine.
休みます。頭痛がひどいのでジェシカもあまり夜更かしをしすぎないように。
I'm sure nothing bad will happen to her now that she's given like a time limit of exactly when she will give her something. Natsuki put the charm in her pocket and turned away. She then disappeared into the dark hall. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm sure nothing terrible will happen to Natsuki.
やっぱり明日も丸一日こんな天気みたいだね。
やれやれ。今日の日中が嘘のようだぜ。
It's all lies. George, Aniki, and I were killing time in front of the parlor television. At that point, Jessica returned. Her face was still blank, but it looked like she'd calmed down a little since we'd last seen her.
マリアはまだ肖像画前？
いや、さっき戻ってきて、今はそっちのソファ
She
ーで
cried
寝てるぜ。
herself to sleep.
マリアにはもう遅い時間だもんな。
Looking at the clock, I saw it was a little past 10 p.m. Even if we were planning to stay up all night, it was about time to head back to our room.
一応 うちのおふくろが屋敷にも部屋を用意してくれたんだけどよ。どうする？
僕はゲストハウスに戻りたいかな。親たちの様子を見る限り、僕たちはお屋敷にいない方がいいと思う。
俺も同感だぜ。子供は邪魔せず引っ込んでろって感じみてえだからな。おとなしくそうするさ。
As we were talking about this, Aunt Rosa came into the parlor. She was looking all over restlessly, trying to find Maria.
ローザおばさん。マリアならそこのソファっすよ。
Yeah, I'm sure leaving all the adults totally alone without any supervision, as silly as that sound, will end very poorly for them.
ありがとう。すっかり眠っちゃってるわね。ベッドに移さないと。
Yeah, I don't think you should leave a tiny child sleeping on a sofa.
よかったら僕がベッドまで背負っていきましょうか。
ありがとう。助かるわ。ジョージ君たちはゲストハウスに戻るの？それとも夏日姉さんが用意してくれた部屋に泊まるのかしら？
今話し合ってました。ゲストハウスへ戻ろうかって話になったところです。
そう。ならマリアも一緒にしてあげて
Go
もいい
into the
かし
guest house.
ら？いとこのみんなと一緒の方が。
Oh boy, we're separating all the young people from the old people. How convenient for anything that might happen. Behind those words, you seem to be concealing some regret that the adults, herself included, had deeply hurt Maria's feelings.
任してくださいよおばさん。何しろこっちにゃマリアをあやすことに関してはエキスパートがいるっすからね。
それは僕のことかい？僕だけじゃ無理だよ。
He can talk cat, can't you, George?
みんなでだよ。
そうだぜ。バトラだってあんなにもマリアと意気投合してふざけ合ってたじゃねえかよ。
As we said this, Aunt Rosa smiled, looking truly happy.
みんなありがとう。私たちの話し合いはだいぶ遅くまでかかりそう。だから申し訳ないけどマリアをみんなにお願いするわ。
おいマリア、熟睡か？
She's
ゲスト
sleepy.
ハウスに戻るぞ。
Maria muttered something indistinct, rolled over, and fell back asleep. It looked like she was sleeping deeply.
すっかり寝込んじゃったようだぜ。起こすのは悪いな。
僕が背負うよ。
George will do everything. Maria's body was much lighter than it looked. I lifted her up and put her on George Aniki's back. It was raining hard outside, and Aniki couldn't hold an umbrella and carry Maria at the same time. It looked like Aunt Rosa would come with us as far as the guest house to help out. However, when she heard Uncle Krause's voice call out to her, she had no choice but to return.
困ったわね。
She has no ability to say no to that sort of thing, huh? I guess the call of money is too big for her, too.
皆さん、ゲストハウスまでお戻りですか？
After we left the hall on the way to the entrance, the door to the seventh room opened and Xiaonan-chan stepped out.
だいぶ暗くなっておりますので、私がご案内させていただきます。
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
ちょうどよかったわ、シャノちゃん。ジョージ君がマリアをおぶっていってくれるの。
None of us have a good sense of direction. That's why we need you.
はい、かしこまりました。
Xiaonan-chan had brought umbrellas for each of us and a flashlight to guide the way. As we opened the front door, the downpour was quite terrific. It looked like we wouldn't have any spare time to take a pleasant walk and enjoy the nighttime rose garden.
俺が背負うぜ。
There's no way a 9-year-old girl is very heavy.
大丈夫だよ。マリアちゃんくらい背負えるよ。
本当にありがとうね。マリアをよろしくお願い。
わかりました。じゃあおやすみなさい、おばさん。
それではお送りしてまいります。ええ、よろしく。
Aunt Rosa's watch us sleep.
マリオ、いつもごめんね。
Rose's mumbling voice didn't reach the person in question nor any of the kids, but disappeared beneath the sound of the rain. More flags, great. After cutting through the rainy rose garden, we arrived at the guest house.
俺がマリアを背負って立候補すりゃよかったぜ。そうすりゃ傘を差してくれるシャノンちゃんのでっけえお乳を二の腕でたっぷり堪能できたってのによ。
Can you stop talking about boobs for like a minute?
誤解だよ。
そうしないとジョージ様が濡れてしまうと思いまして。
Oh no, anime embarrassing horny
バカなこと言っ
moments.
てないで入るぜ。
After being urged on by Jessica, we folded up our umbrellas and went into the guest house.
お召し物を濡らしてしまった方はいらっしゃいませんか？
Everyone.
タオルを用意いたしますが。
そこまで気を使わなくていいぜ。ありがとうよ、シャノンちゃん。
そうだ。僕たちはこれからトランプでもして少し遊ばないかって話なんだけど、よかったら。
あれ、今日のシフト深夜勤は誰になってんだ？
George really likes this girl.
特別シフトになってたと思いました。少し変更も出てるみたいなのでちょっと確認してきます。
ああ、わざわざ屋敷に戻らないとわからないんなら無理に。
大丈夫です。ゲストハウスの使用人室でわかりますの
Yeah,
で。
you can use the phone, right?
ちょっと失礼しますね。
The rest of us headed for the cousin's room and decided to put Maria to bed for the time being. Maria was sleeping very deeply, and there was absolutely no sign of her eyes opening. For now, we'd get some soft drinks out of the room's refrigerator and drink those while playing cards or something. It's a night with the boys.
あれ、カノン君、源氏様までこちらに。 今夜のシフトはどうなっているのでしょうか。
クラウス様の命令があってね。
Oh, what did Kraus
シ
do?
フトの大掛かりな変更があったんだよ。
ゴーダがお屋敷の深夜勤に変更になった。シャノンとカノンはゲストハウスの深夜勤。
How convenient.
私とクマサーはゲストハウスに泊まるようにとのご命令。
How furtherly convenient.
お前も今夜はこのままこちらにとどまるよう。たった今電話があった。
Why does Kraus want this specifically?
ずいぶん大掛かりな変更ですね。お屋敷とゲストハウスの当番がまるっきり逆になってるじゃないですか。
Originally, Shannon and Canon had been assigned to the night shifts in the mansion, while the night shift in the guest house, where all the relatives were staying, had been assigned to Goda, who had an ambulance of experience and training. Abundance, not an ambulance. Kumasawa should have been sleeping at the guest house, but while Genji should have been sleeping in the mansion. However, it seemed that Kraus had suddenly ordered that the schedule be modified. The shifts at the guest house and the mansion had all been reversed, and Genji was spending the night in the guest house.
多分ベアトリーチ様の手紙のせいだろうね。
It spooked him.
多分ってどうして？
あんな怪しげな手紙が現れたらクラウス様が僕たちを疑うのは当然だからね。親方様直属の僕たちを極力親族会議の席から遠ざけたかったんだろうよ。
Genji, Shannon, and Canon are all permitted to wear the Ushiromiya family crest, the one-winged angel, dun dun dun, as the servants who serve directly under Kinzo. That's true, it does mean Goda is the most likely to die tonight out of any of the servants, because they're all in here. Of course, since they were working for the Ushiromiya family, they had to obey anyone's orders, but their only boss was Kinzo. Since only Kinzo held the right to employ them, Even Kraus would not have dismissed his own discord. Because of this, Kraus and the others often viewed those servants as Kinzo's underlings and shunned them. And in fact, Kinzo seldom let anyone other than them enter his study. This sudden change was probably a clear expression of the sense of mistrust that had caused. Considering the time Kinzo had left to be alive, this would definitely be the last family conference before the problems of his inheritor came up. On top of that, the mysterious letter that claimed to be from Beatrice had dropped in and out of the blue. Kraus definitely wanted to keep Kinzo's royal subjects away from the table of such a delicate and important discussion.
ではすまんが、私は向こうでくつろがせてもらう。
Good night, Genji.
もし何かあったらすぐに呼ぶよう。
Sleep tight, Genji.
お客様は特別だ。
A special case, huh? That's in bold even, for emphasis.
はい、かしこまりました。源氏様。
Genji nodded back and went behind a screen, take off his jacket, and slowly began to relax after a day's worth of tension.
今お戻りになられたのはお子様方。
うん、親族の方々はお屋敷で会議を。だいぶ長引きそうな雰囲気だったかな。
なら気楽だね。これ以上の深夜になって、しかもこの天気。多分親族の皆さんはお屋敷の方のお部屋にお泊まりさ。
Yeah, they've all been separated, down very convenient lines.
源氏様がいないから言うけど、ゲストハウス行きになってちょっと嬉しかったかな。
ふん。どうしてだい？
Why is that?
意地悪な奥様やエヴァ様から
Well,
離れられた
that is also nice, I bet.
それとも別の理由があるのかい？
別の理由なんかありません。
そっか。
She likes George, that's the
二
reason.
人で深夜勤を頑張ろう。よろしく、姉さん。
私ついさっきお子様方にお部
Oh,
屋で
I'm
遊
so
ばないかと
embarrassed to
お
hang
願
out
い
with
してて。
boys. Shannon hung her head apologetically, gazing at Canon uncertainly. Canon didn't try to meet her eyes and spoke curtly as he sighed. It looked like he didn't plan on indulging his sister.
ダメだよ。深夜勤を仰せつかってる。それに僕たち家具には遊びのお誘いは必要ない。わ
Boo.
かるね。
そんなこと分か
Let
って
her have a
ま
good
す。
time. Come on. Shannon's shoulders drooped slightly. She had already expected that Canon, a stickler for the rules, would say something like that, but she still seemed a little discouraged. As Canon flipped through a logbook, he spoke without facing Shannon.
ならお子様方お待たせしてしまってるね。深夜勤に当たってしまったからご一緒できないと謝ってこなきゃ。行ってきなよ。
He was nice to her.
私謝ってくるね。
Shannon hurriedly stood from her seat before her brother's mood could change and flew out of the servant room after giving a quick bow. As he watched her go, Canon took a single deep breath. Genji's voice came from beyond the screen.
カノン、私がここにいるから。
Canon, stop being a little stick in the mud.
源氏様、誘われたのはシャノンだけです。僕は別に誘われては。
その場にいなかったからお声をかけられなかった。
Come on. Have a good
お
time.
前も誘われている。たまには子供らしく遊んでくるといい。
Enjoy your time off,
Yeah.
kiddo.
僕には必要ない行為です。
Ugh, he's so stubborn.
人の子には遊びも必要でしょう
But
が。
I'm
僕ら
furniture.
そうか。
姉さんだって家具です。
Kako
人のふりを
des.
したって後で苦しむだけなのに。僕はそれが分かっているから人に近づきたくないだけなんです。
You're so emo, Canon. Genji did not say anything after that. After a while, he stood up and used a pot of hot water to make a powdered cocoa, serving some to Canon as well. Well, at least he could make some nice hot cocoa.
そりゃ本当かよ。
Hontokayo! Okay, Hang on, I'm gonna take a really short break to get a drink because my throat's a little dry. It'll be just a second, so please be patient. Thank you. It will be just a moment, I promise. Enjoy the rain ambiance. Sorry about that. Sorry about the sudden break. But I did need I need to fill my sippy cup. And like the sleepy boy time was actually getting to me. I needed to stand up and stretch. Sorry about that. But I'm back now. Actually, I never have anything to apologize for. Sorry, retracted. I can do whatever I want. Anyways. Is that for real?
そりゃ知らなかったぜ。
バカ、声が大きいぜ。
What are we surprised about?
マリアが起きちゃうだろ。
Battler was so surprised that he yelled obnoxiously and scattered his cards everywhere. His voice caused Maria to turn over once, but she soon fell back into a deep sleep. Jessica gave him a jab and he lowered his voice.
あ、いや、しかし、言われてみれば、確かにそれっぽい雰囲気はあったんだよな。なるほどな。ジョージの兄貴がな。
I'm surprised Battler didn't figure this out immediately. George couldn't be seen anywhere in the room. A short while ago, when Shannon came into the room, George suddenly said that he'd forgotten something in the mansion and needed to go back and get it. Shannon said that she would guide him just like she had on the way to the guest house, and the two of them departed together.
いや、昔からそれっぽい気配はあったん
It
だ
was
って。
so obvious. You couldn't tell George is into her? Come
好
on.
きなものを聞いてきたり、趣味を聞いてきたりさ。
You couldn't tell George is attracted to the big titty
単に
maid?
関心を持つだけにしてはどうもなんて思ってたらよ。
そういや、昔っからジョージの兄貴はシャノンちゃんにやたらと優しかった気がするぜ。
That's true.
なるほどな。
Battler was too busy trying to molest her, I guess, to get the hints. It's stormy. I always thought storms were very relaxing.
天気予報によると今夜が一番ひどいみたい。明日いっぱいも止まないらしいけど、もう少しマシになるそうだよ。
そうですか。では、明後日までは船は来られないかもしれませんね。
You know, a few weeks ago when there was that big tornado warning in my area, I slept like a baby, honestly. The rain was so relaxing.
ジョージ様の月曜日のお勤めに差し支えが出ないか心配です。
台風が来ていることは知っていたからね。万一に備えて月曜日には予定を入れなかったから大丈夫さ。こう見えてもスケジュールは先読みできるタイプなんだ。
George puffed out his chest, acting proud. Compared to the calm appearance Jorm's always had as the oldest cousin, he now looked amusingly like a little kid. Yeah, he's trying to show off for his crush. Shannon chuckled at his abrupt contrast.
さすが。やがては会社を起こされる方はしっか
I'm
りして
sure
い
he
ます
will.
ね。
やっぱり会社を起こすというのは大変だね。お金とかそういうのだけじゃないものが父さんのところで勉強していてわかるよ。会社を起こすということは城を持ち部下を率いるという。
Hey, as someone who owns a castle, I take offense to that. It is not like a company at all. Dirty Dovens, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Rose Rabbit Army. I am happy to have you here.
うちの父さんは秀吉って名前だけあって戦国武将のエピソードがとても好きで、ね、
Sengoku.
会社経営の哲学をよくそこから語るんだ。知ってるかい？戦国最強の騎馬軍団と恐れられた武田信玄も最初は部下たちの結束がバラバラ
Is
で
this every VN has the weird history dump?
そうなんですか？なんだか意外ですね。
信玄は部下たちを結束させるため数々のリーダーシップを発揮してるんだ
See,
よ。
walking in the rain is troublesome for me, Cooper Tank. It makes my hair all frizzy.
例えば 戦場で武功を立てた部下に対しすぐその場で報奨を与えたり、普通こういうのは戦が終わってからまとめてやるものだからね。それを戦場の本陣の
Eva
中に
seems
い
to
ながら
like Hideyoshi and George a lot.
部下の武功を素早く評価し、
She's always been pretty nice to them.
非常に大きいことだよ。それから部下が病気で伏せった時
Wow, he's just going on about this Sengoku
お見
stuff.
舞いをしたとかね。武田信玄は戦国最強の騎馬軍団を率いただけじゃない、戦国一の部下思いの人だったんだよ。
そんな方だから部下の皆さんもついてきてくれたんですね。
Yeah, I get it. I get the allegory here. The truth was, Shannon had already heard this story several years ago. But whenever a discussion of his father led to this sort of topic, George would always glow and look like he was having a great time. So Shannon just smiled without interrupting, urging him to continue.
確かに資本主義の世界ではお金は力で石垣の高さでもある。でもね、
Yeah, that's exactly what's going
戦
on.
も城も
He's just
自分
rambling
一
on
人じゃ
about
成り立たない。
this Warring States period, and Shannon just thinking, ooh, I can't not fuck him.
大勢の部下に支えられ、その力を借りて初めて成立するものなんだよ。
Uh-huh.
それを理解してから父さんの背中を見ると、
That's true. I do have a lot of subordinates. It's all of you.
父さんが
I enjoy having you
どれ
all
ほ
as
ど
my
切磋琢磨をして
subordinates.
今日を築き上げてきたかがよくわかるんだ。
ジョージ様はお父様のことをとても尊敬されているんですね。羨ましいです。
ああ、ごめん。別にそういう意味で言ったんじゃないんだよ。
すみません。私も別にそういう意味で言ったつもりは。
The two of them awkwardly looked at their feet. Xiaonan had no parents. She had been brought up in an orphanage owned by Kinzo called the Fukuin House. Under the guidance of Kinzo, their honorary director, the orphanage offered members who excelled a chance for on-the-job serving experience. If their efforts met with Kinzo's approval, they'd be able to leave the orphanage and work as servants for the Ushiromiya family. This was considered to be the highest honor for those who lived in the orphanage, and something that seems extremely exploitative. Servants from the Fukuin house all took names with the character On in them while they served. I see, that's why you got Canon and Shannon. So Shannon wasn't her real name. The same went for Canon. All of the other members of the Fukuin house were orphans. At least, they were all people who had been separated from their parents under special circumstances. Because of this, the orphans had been taught to think of each other as their only family. That's why it seemed so natural to both of them when Shannon called Shannon his sister. And while both Shannon and Canon were working in the mansion today, there were several other servants possessing the On character in their names, such as Manon and Lennon. Wait, not George Lennon, who often worked in a rotation schedule. However, there were not many servants who stayed with the Ushiromiya family for long. It was standard for them to quit after 3 years. So you could probably say that Shannon, who had been working for 10 years, was a notable exception to the rule. Working as a servant for the Ushiromiya family was a heavy burden to bear, but the pay wasn't bad at all. Working for a full 3 years would earn more than what was needed to enter mainstream society. That was why, even though orphans realized what a harsh task working for the Ushiromiya family was, they still hoped to be excited. Yeah, it is a little weird. Shannon's like 16 or something? It's a little weird. But it's not like so weird that I'm like, ew. Maybe the fact that Shannon managed to continue working for 10 years wasn't because she had more willpower than the other servants. Maybe she'd gotten stuck working for 10 years because she didn't have the courage to say she wanted to quit. Shannon is 18? Oh, well that's fine then. 18 and 21 are fine. Kinzo couldn't even trust his own blood relatives. Those excellent servants sent from the Fukuin house were the only ones he could rely on. Because of that, Kinzo would sometimes allow them to wear the family crest as servants under his direct control and have them work close to him. Yeah, it's Canon who's 16.
もう勤めて10年近くになるんだっけ。だいぶお金も貯まったんじゃないかい。
George is 23? Oh, I thought he was like 21. I don't know. It's still not weird to me. As long as they're both over 18, it's not that weird to me.
どうでしょう。別に私買いたいものも特にありませんし。
Like,
ほんの何百万
I don't
円だ
know.
って
Age gaps aren't weird to me if they're both over 18.
目標の額があって
Then it's just like
お勤め
whatever.
を続けてるわけじゃないのかい？
Like, it can still be weird, but at that point it's like whatever, you can make that choice.
そうですね。私はこのお屋敷以外に行くあてもありませんし、お嬢様とも他の使用人の子たちとも仲良くやれてますし、奥様には時折お叱りを受けますけど、
I would think the weirder part of it isn't so much the ages as it is the power difference, because she basically works for George, sort of.
それはシャノンちゃんのサヨちゃんの人生じゃない。
Oh, I guess Sayo is her real name. Shannon cast her eyes downwards when she heard her real name. She understood what George was trying to say and fell silent.
僕は成人し、社会人になってからも勉強して分かったことがある。子供の頃、僕らが思っていたほど人生は単調で短くないんだ。
But I mean, you know, you got the maids in Tsukihime, and that's still weird. Because of the maid power difference. So whatever. We've just learned to accept this is part of visual novel culture as fucking maids. They wonder whether they'll live the rest of their lives like sleepy classes after a monotonous and boring school day, spending their time in carefree laziness without anything interesting happening until it's all over. However, life's only like that for underage students. Compared to a human's life, the time they spend as students is nothing more than the blink of an eye, a period where they break through the shells of their immaturity. The inside of the shell might be a hot, suffocating, and boring world, but the world beyond that shell is vast and filled with limitless possibilities.
君の人生はまだシャノンという殻の中でしかないんだ。君は自分の人生がこの生活のままずっと続いていくと勘違いしてるんじゃないかな。
それは
Shannon couldn't deny those words. She'd been unable to harbor any clear doubts about her lifestyle, and since she never had any hope or goals for changing herself, she lazily continued living the way she always had. And if asked whether this life was satisfying, she wouldn't have been able to nod. She may have been intentionally averting her eyes from the truth. Without George's admonishment, she would have continued pretending not to notice as her real life slipped away bit by bit, neglected.
庄司さん。
She's like scared of going out into the real world.
私はこのままでいてはいけないのでしょうか。
I don't know, being like an orphan maid is probably not like the actual best lifestyle for you, especially when it's for a freak family like the Ushiromiya's.
あ、それから今ルール違反が一つあったね。
Like, I don't think you should be doing that for your entire life. George immediately gave a strict answer, then broke out into a mischievous smile. Shannon already knew what she was being chided for, and she hung her head again, apparently embarrassed.
僕たちしかいないときは様はなしの約束だよ。
約束では聞けません。
Oh, it's just like Hisui.
ですが、ご命令でしたら。
You missed some of it? I'm sorry, Hatsune Marvin, but I'm happy you're here now.
私は
You guys gotta stop saying your furniture. You're just talking like bottoms on Twitter.
じゃあ命令だよ。
はい、かしこまりました。ジョージさん。
Georgie-san? George's name again this time, following it with san.
うん。それでいいよ、さよちゃん。
George smiled at Shannon, no Sayo, to praise her small act of bravery. This short exchange alone made it clear how far back their relationship must have stretched. Explain what's going on right now in the scene. Basically, George and Shannon like each other, so they snuck out for a quiet moment alone. And George is basically saying, hey, is being a weird maid for that is also an orphan for a freakish family like mine what you really want to do for your entire life? And she's like, no, I guess not. That's basically summing up that scene. This short exchange alone made it clear how far back their relationship must have stretched. For a long while, the two talked as if the weather raging about them didn't even enter their thoughts. They talked about the many memories they'd built during their relationship that no one else knew about. Every once in a while, a flash of lightning would attempt to interrupt them, but this could sully neither the roses nor the time they spent blushing at each other. Alright. If the music faded out, faded back in, and then faded out again. You have some knowledge that I might like to know? Okay.
なんでしょうか。
George, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly started to stutter. Watching him, Shannon seemed to guess something. George timidly searched through his pocket. Oh, is he gonna propose? Something got caught in the depths of his pocket, and just like the stuttering George, it took a little while to get it out. It was a very... Oh, I knew it. Ooh, the drama. A small box covered in a deep blue velvet. That particular shape was enough to tell anyone what was resting inside. Shannon had prepared her heart somewhat, certain beforehand that this is what he'd been planning. But even so, when she actually saw it, she couldn't help avoid blushing once more. It's gonna have a Neo Geo Pocket Arcade in it? I would accept. If someone proposes to me with a Neo Geo Pocket Arcade instead of a ring, I'm saying yes. George opened the box, took something out, and held it out for Shannon to take. I love this, like, Disney music. It's like Disney romance scene music.
受け取りできません。
受け取れない。
いえ、そのこんなもの私には過ぎていて。
さよ、これはお願いじゃない。命令だよ。
Okay, that's a little weird, but I understand it. You're doing it in a romantic way. Alright, guys, you don't need to put your kinks in everything, but you know what? I respect it a little bit. Shannon, not wanting to show her bright red face, timidly accepted the ring from George's hand while still staring at the ground. That ring wasn't a simple accessory. It was a noble object meant since ancient times to be offered to a special woman under special circumstances. Therefore, while George could order her to take it, he could not order anything beyond that. Anything beyond that would depend not on an order, but on Shannon's, no, Sayo's own will. I don't know if you could actually order that first part, but you know, whatever. No, don't do the always sunny quote in there. You know, because of the implications.
どうすれば。
もうこれ以上は命令じゃないから、僕は君に命令はしない。でも、指輪は。
What did he mean by this?
気に入ってくれたなら、好きな指につけてくれればいい。
Shannon had only pretended not to know. She already understood what he wanted her to do. But she was standing at a huge crossroads of her life.
もうこんな時間だね。今夜はこれくらいにしよう。
George turned away from Shannon, acting just a bit bluntly.
君に左手につけてほしいと命令することもできるかもしれない。君も命令されればそれに従えるという臆病な甘えがあるかもしれない。
I could force you to marry me, but I won't. Aren't I such a nice guy?
最後のここだけは君のサヨの意志でしてもらいたいんだ。
Alright,
わかる
George.
ね。
I told you all he was a weirdo.
はい。
Yeah, it's because of the implication.
だからそれが命令。今夜よく考えて明日その返事を見せてほしい。
And remember, there's no way off this island. Shannon nodded back. Today was the culmination of their many days spent together. This moment certainly hadn't come as a surprise to Shannon.
そろそろゲストハウスに戻ろうか。
Also, I'm sure nothing terrible will happen before tomorrow, you
こ
know.
れ以上遅いとみんなを心配させちゃうよ。
すみません。私、そのお屋敷に用を思い出しまして、そのお屋敷へ行かねばなりません。
I gotta go. I gotta get out of here.
こんな時間に本当かな。
George stared into Shannon's face as he laughed mischievously. He definitely saw through Shannon's lie. However, when he saw how she felt, he could sort of understand that she might be so embarrassed that she'd want to be alone. So, because George realized that meaning behind Shannon's lie, he accepted it. So gracious. Oh, okay, that's the eye catch. It's now 11 o'clock. I'm sure nothing will happen when the clock hits that big red 12. George is 23, Shannon is 16. All right, that is a little weird. Hey, it's playing that good song now, though. Shannon entered the entrance hall to the mansion with the tottering gate. A mixture of exaltation and uncertainty gave her a feeling that she couldn't easily describe. It swelled up in her chest until it felt like she was about to burst. After stopping for a second in front of the servant room to take a deep breath and calm her heart, she opened the door. Inside, Goda, who had been ordered to take the midnight shift at the mansion tonight, was absorbed in a worn-out crossword puzzle magazine. He looked up for an instant to see if one of the family had come, but when he realized it was a fellow servant, he returned to his puzzle as if nothing had happened.
源氏様より郷田さんのお手伝いにつくように言われてまいりました。
ああ、そうですか。それは助かります。そろそろ戸締まりの見回りに行きたかったのですが、ここを開けてもいいものか困っていたのです。
We did get a spooky witch letter after all.
何しろ、旦那様方の会合はまだだいぶ続きそうですからね。いつ何時お茶のご用命があるかもわかりませんし。
I have to show off with tea. I have to show off at every opportunity.
ではどうしましょうか。私が留守番を。
ではシャノンさん、申し訳ありませんが、お屋敷内の見回りをお
Of
願いしま
course,
す。
of course.
私はここで親族の皆さんのご用命の待機をしておりますので。
はい。
Goda's such a bastard. Like, immediately. Shannon was slightly disgusted. Even though she'd come here to help out as a favor, she was casually being forced to do the job of the person actually on duty. Furthermore, after one-sidedly forcing that task on her, Goda returned to his magazine once again and became immersed in his crossword puzzle. What a dick. Fuck that guy. Shannon bowed her head as a token and sign of respect for her elder, and then left the room to patrol the mansion. Thanks to her being a bit ticked off, she managed to suppress the floaty feeling she'd been having until just now. And anyway, she couldn't let Genji or Kanon see her looking like this. She wanted a little time to herself until her heart calmed down, so maybe going on patrol wouldn't be so bad. Goda's like so passive-aggressive. I hate that kind of person the most. She began to hear that tumultuous voice of the family discussion coming from the dining hall. Someone was speaking at great length, only to be interrupted by someone else. The second person also began to speak in a very long, drawn-out fashion until yet another person interrupted. Yeah, Goda's like... He does that, like, fake nice thing you know, passive aggressive, fake niceness. Where, like, you can totally tell, like, he's not very good at faking being nice, so you can totally tell that he doesn't mean it. Yeah, that's the worst kind of person to me. So annoying. That kept on repeating. It was as though the displeasure was seeping out through their voices. She had been told to go to the guest house, so it would be bad if Kraus discovered her. Thinking this, Shannon dashed past the dining hall. Then she went along a prearranged route through the dark mansion, checking that all the clocks were secure. The clocks? The locks. I don't know why she would care about the clocks that much. I hope nothing bad happens to her, walking alone in a dark, spooky mansion. She walked down the hall, checking each window. There were no humans on Rokenjima other than those connected to the family, so locking up didn't really serve much of a purpose. No one had been in the habit of locking up at the Ushiromiya head family, at least not until Natsuya had scolded them for being careless. The metal fixtures on the windows were ice cold, and as she checked them one by one, the glow in her heart seemed to cool down. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Butterflies. At that time, she thought she saw something twinkling across the hall. Twinkling? How could anything be twinkling through the darkness of the hall? Spooky. It's so spooky. Are you spooked by these butterflies? She figured she must have been imagining it, but she still held her breath. Grasping a curtain, she fearfully gazed down the hall. However, other than the occasional crack of thunder brightening the hallway, she was unable to glimpse any flicker again. It must have been her imagination after all. Maybe her heart was so agitated that she'd seen something that didn't even exist. Shannon went back to checking the windows. However, a certain unnerving memory was resurrected in the back of her mind. It was that ghost story, which had been passed down amongst the head servants who served the Ushiromiya head family. The mansion had two different masters, one of the day and one of the night. Beatrice, the master of the night, would sometimes fly around the mansion in the form of sparkling butterflies. That was the story. Come to think of it, didn't Kanon-kun once say he'd seen it with his own eyes? Though he got sulky when I said he must have imagined it and refused to believe him. Could it possibly be true? The roar of the thunder gave no answer. Oh, we left the scene. We're back with other people now. It's gotta really build up this lady. The funny witch. Spooky. Oh, is it midnight now? The witching hour, you might say? I keep expecting the eyes move like it's fucking Scooby-Doo. Sorry. I made that joke and now I want it to be real. Oh boy, time for more awkward family discussions. Yes, everything is in place. All the characters are gathered, the stage is set. The players are all here. Oh, I unlocked achievement, 24 o'clock. Midnight. The witching hour! Spooky. How ominous. How foreboding. There it is. It's 12 o'clock. Oh, never mind. We're going forward. It's 6 o'clock. It's the morning. Nothing happened. Fuck you. The second day, October 5th, 1986. Genji tightened his bow tie and looked outside through a crack in the curtains. Maybe the rain had died down a tiny bit since the previous night, but the thick rain clouds didn't seem like they'd be letting any trace of the morning sun get by. The morning was dim and far from refreshing.
やはり今日いっぱいはやみそうにないか。
Yeah, getting some Majora... Guy who's only played Majora's Mask, seeing the date. Getting some major Majora's Mask vibes from this.
お待たせしました、源氏様。
Canon finished checking his appearance and exited the washroom. On their normal schedule, it was rare for anyone to have to suffer going straight from a midnight shift to an early morning shift. They were on a special schedule for the 2 days of the family conference. However, unless the typhoon passed today, the relatives' stay on this island would last until tomorrow. Canon thought it best to be prepared for the special schedule to last an extra day. The two of them left the guest house, opening their umbrellas. The rose garden had been devastated by the wind and rain on the previous night. Even though they'd spent several days making it beautiful to welcome the guests, one stormy night was enough to ruin it. This might be a metaphor. Canon sighed. The two headed for the mansion. They were supposed to meet up with Goda and prepare breakfast. Goda was such a perfectionist that he had probably already woken up and was probably already preparing a breakfast as exquisite and elegant as glasswork. They reached the overhang by the entrance to the mansion and folded their umbrellas. Genji took a bundle of several keys from his pocket and unlocked the front door. The Ushiromiya family mansion was the only thing on Rokenjima, so in the past, they hadn't been in the habit of locking up, but now there's a spooky witch around. However, Natsuhi had ordered that the mansion be locked up from morning to midnight every locked up from midnight to early morning. Blah 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 blah. Ever since then, unlocking the door in the early morning had become part of the servants' morning shift. This task had been given to Genji and Canon so that Goda could start preparing breakfast as soon as he woke up. Silence had fallen in the mansion, giving the impression that the mansion itself was still asleep.
では朝の仕事を始めよう。
はい。
He's got nothing else to do, this Genji. The two of them split up and began opening the curtains throughout the mansion. If the curtains stayed closed, the mansion would remain enveloped in faint darkness as though it was still trapped in the previous night. Following a well-rehearsed procedure, Canon went around the mansion, opening the curtains for one window after another without having to retrace his steps once. Goda's the killer because you want him to get axed the most? Well, that could still happen without him being the killer. Even with the horrible weather, drawing the curtains made it feel just a bit like morning. While doing that, he passed in front of the kitchen. Even though he hadn't smelled anything yet, his stomach started aching for some of Goda's prized cooking.
おはようございます。
He tried to greet Goda, who should have been getting breakfast ready, but Goda was nowhere to be seen. The kitchen was darkly lit, and not only were the curtains not open, but the fan wasn't even running. Oh boy, I'm sure this isn't ominous. You might get what you want, Medivok. It was still cold, without any trace of fire being lit, so of course there were no signs of breakfast being made either. Though it would have been inexcusable, perhaps Goda had overslept. Even servants are only human. They sometimes sleep in and show up late. In the rare case that such a thing happens, it's part of a servant's code to hide the unsightly scene before anyone notices, smoothly cover it up, and make sure the family never even realizes that anything has gone wrong. Canon took the receiver of the phone that had been fitted into the wall and dialed the number for the extension line in the servant's sleeping room. He couldn't hear that characteristic sound of a dial tone. Canon tried picking up the receiver again, but even so, he couldn't hear the usual dial tone. Have the phone lines been cut? He tried dialing again, but it had no apparent effect. You know what? I guess that's fair. They can't... Number one thing, they can't be able to contact the world outside of the island, right? Could the lightning last night have damaged some machine, breaking the extension line? The equipment in this mansion was all worn out. Canon fully understood that even the smallest thing could have caused it to break down. And yeah, it is the 80s, so there's no like cell phones or anything. The only way to get a call out to the mainland would be through phone. Landline, that is. He gave up trying to wake Goto with the phone and dashed over to the servant's sleeping room. How long has it been since I stopped sleeping and started lazily staring up at the ceiling? That vague sense of awakening was part of Natsuhi's usual morning experience. She always slept lightly, and she couldn't sleep at all without medicine. To Natsuhi, sleep was definitely not a happy thing. When she looked outside, she saw that it was still pouring. If she hadn't sensed a tiny amount of light, she might have mistakenly thought it was still the previous night. She herself was one of the hosts, so she mustn't wake up later than her guests. Urging herself on, she raised up her body, which still hadn't completely recovered from yesterday's weariness. No one would torment her as long as she remained inside this room, and her headache wouldn't get any worse here. This room was the only place she could find peace. So when she left, it meant returning to the world where her husband's siblings kept trying to stab each other in the back. And also, your actual husband doesn't seem to like you very much. In that case, wouldn't it be better to just stay locked up in this room forever? That ridiculous notion brought a bitter smile to Natsuhi's face. She was starting to sound like Kinzo. Though she often complained about Kinzo staying locked up in his room and refusing to attend to everyone else, the truth was that she longed to do the same. Natsuhi gave her head a small shake, and her fantasy was replaced by the reawakening of her usual headache. I can understand her being so terrible. If you have like a 24-hour headache, 24/7, that is pretty bad. I would also be pretty crabby if that were the case. When she reached for the doorknob, trying to leave the room, her hand touched the scorpion charm that she had hung from it before going to sleep the previous night. It was Maria's charm, which Natsuhi had received from Jessica. Didn't Jessica say something about it having the power to repel magic, telling her to hang it from her doorknob? Maybe it was thanks to the charm that at least this room had been protected from the malice of her husband's siblings. As she thought this, her mood began to get a little more cheerful. Maybe I should be nice to my daughter. Then Natsuhi remembered. That's right, last night I promised Jessica that I'd give her a charm of my own in exchange for this one, didn't I? Natsuhi opened a drawer on her dresser and took out an antique accessory case that she had treasured when she was a child. Inside, there were many small objects that Natsuhi had thought were valuable at the time. From amidst those, she pulled a red pouch. Inside was a small, round mirror about 10 centimeters across. It looked quite old, but the design on the back of the mirror was very ornate, and it felt like something with historical value. At the very least, it seemed much more authentic than the other charm, which looked like a plastic scorpion keychain. She had heard this was a spiritual mirror for warding off evil spirits, and she had been given it especially by her grandmother when her grandfather's mementos had been distributed. It had been believed since long ago that a strange power resided in this mirror. Perhaps people thought it could reflect calamity and malice in the same way it reflected light. Natsuhi returned the mirror to its pouch. It would probably be a fitting object to hand over to Jessica. Yeah, that's good enough. Oh. Just as she was placing it in her pocket, the sound of someone knocking on the door suddenly echoed throughout the room.
Hi.
Hi, Genji. Oh, it's just Genji. I'm not scared of Genji. He's a nice guy. Genji's okay. I would be fine with having him around. Almost everybody else in this is a no-go, but Genji's alright. Genji's cool. No servant had ever come to her this early in the morning, nor had they come to wake her in person. Perhaps something bad had happened. Maybe some fatal oversight had been made while preparing breakfast, something that would shame the household in front of their guests. Natsuhi took a deep breath in anticipation for whatever troubles she was about to hear of. I love how it uses the same door opening sound every time. Because, like, even though I would think Natsuki is opening the door fairly quick here, it always sounds like a huge door creaking open. When she opened the door, Genji once again gave a morning greeting while bowing deeply. Natsuki tentatively responded.
おはようございます。何かありましたか？
申し訳ございません。昨夜の落雷で電話機器に故障が出たようです。内線電話が普通になっておりますもので、直接のお伺いになってしまったことをお許しくだ
Yeah,
さい。
the phones are down.
内線電話が普通？それは面倒になりましたね。
That is a problem.
修理は可能ですか？
残念ながら故障箇所がわかりません。後で業者を呼んで修理させたいと。
Yeah, I don't think any of the servants here are, like, repairmen. I don't think they have a repair guy living with
こ
him.
の台風が過ぎるまでは修理不能ということですか？つまり客人たちの滞在中はずっと普通ということですね。客人たちのお世話に支障は？
出ないよう最善を尽くします。
結構です。粗相のないようよろしく頼みます。
No blunders. Natsuki let out a small sigh of relief. She had been prepared for the worst, but the damage to the telephones wasn't the kind of trouble she was worried about. Then again, even this would probably be enough to spark sarcasm from Eva. Natsuki gave her head a light shake.
朝食の準備は順調ですか？
She's like, oh, thank God, it was something totally out of my control. My family won't be a little mean about it.
朝食の支度もまだ行われておらず。
Also, Goda's missing.
なんですって？
Oh, never mind. My life is ruined. She is obsessed with Eva. To be fair, Eva seems to take a particular pleasure in stabbing her, so... She lives rent-free in Natsuki's head. It's like people are about me on Twitter. To her, this was a huge... Natsuki was indignant. To her, this was a much bigger problem than the phones not working. And despite that, this piece of information was the part that had been postponed. Why did everything go well most of the time and then come to something like this when the relatives were visiting? Natsuki put her hand to her forehead and shook her head.
大方朝寝坊でもしているのでしょう。とにかく誰でもいいから急いで朝食の準備を。
Just make some toast or something. Uh-oh. Natsuki exited into the hall and turned around for a second to close the door to her room. The creepy thing she saw there silenced her completely. It was an unpleasant sight, as though someone had dipped their fingers in reddish-black liquid and scratched at the door around the doorknob. Ooh! It was probably some sort of awful prank, arranged by some person who wanted to make it look as though they'd tried to force the door with bloody hands. Spooky.
これは悪趣味な。
私も今ここにお
I
伺い
was
し
hoping
て
you wouldn't
初め
notice.
て気づきました。後ほど清掃いたします。
大方趣味の悪い客人の冗談でしょう。
Yeah, I like how the little arrow and the the part of the UI showing you to click ahead also turned red.
不愉快です。実に不愉快です。
Who in the world would pull such a childish and disgusting prank? Natsuki had a pretty good idea, but of course there was no proof. So even if she pushed the issue, it would just seem as though she was making a fuss about nothing. In fact, it would surely be better to act as though she hadn't even realized that such a prank had been played on her. Yeah, just ignore it. Natsuki gave the order to have it cleaned and headed off to the parlor with a squeak of her heels. Nah, Battler might be a goof, but he doesn't seem like this sort of prankster. When Natsuki and Genji arrived in the parlor, Eva and Hideyoshi were already there.
おはようございます、皆さん。
おはよう、夏日さん。朝食も合田さんが作るっちゅう話やないか。朝から胃袋が大喜びで騒ぎっぱなしなんや。
本家の楽しみは食事くらいがせいぜいですものね。
So mean.
エヴァさんも。
We love to see MILFs catfighting.
何よりです。
With a weary expression, Natsuhi returned Eva's gaze, which was fiercely competitive despite the early hour. Then Kanon jogged in. After bowing an apology to the relatives for running inside the mansion, he noticed Genji and told him something in a small voice.
カノン、ゴーダはまだ見つからないのですか？
申し訳ございません、奥様。お屋敷内もゲストハウスも回ったのですが、まだ。
Well, that's a little spooky. Goda is
どこ
gone.
へ行ったというのです。
Goda is gone, crab
とりあ
emoji.
えず今はゴーダより朝食の準備が先決です。至急対応しなさい。
はい。
Kanon glanced at Genji. It seemed he had something else to report, but was uncertain whether or not the words should come from him. Genji nodded and decided to give the report himself.
奥様、ゴーダだけではありません。
Oh, who else is missing?
旦那様の姿もありません。
Oh, Kraus is also gone?
主人が？
はい。奥様より先に旦那様に朝食の準備がないことをご報告しようと思い、寝室をお伺いしたのですが、それから旦那様だけではありません。
More people are missing.
ルドルフ様、
Rudolph,
ローザ様のお姿。
Rudolph, Kyrie, and Rosa. Oh boy.
ゲストハウスにも屋敷にもですか？
So we're missing Goda, Kraus, Kyrie, Rudolph, and Rosa. That's 5.
はい。
And you know, Shannon hasn't appeared yet either. I know we've lost half of the MILFs. This sucks. We're 2 MILFs down. This cannot stand. When she heard that Goda alone was missing, she'd assumed he had slept in or was loafing around somewhere. Goda, Kraus, Rudolph, Kyrie, Rosa, yeah. So that's 5. And I specifically remembered one part of the riddle said it would require 6 sacrifices. However, now that she'd learned that several of the relatives were also nowhere to be seen, she began to take a slightly more optimistic view. Could last night's family conference then continue all night up until the present moment? If so, they might have wanted to cool their heads after being shut in a stuffy room. Going out for walks on their own through the rain? The part about cooling their heads really sounded like something Kraus would say. Goda had probably been summoned to accompany them and aid them in some way. Goda was not a man who lost track of time. He had to understand that preparations for breakfast would be hindered if he did not return. However, maybe the family conference had continued until this very moment, with an atmosphere that would make it hard for anyone to slip out. Oh yeah. Leaving George hanging with the will they or won't they is a super big death flag. That girl is I would be surprised if she shows up again. Yes, that theory would be quite convincing for Natsuhi. She remembered the illusion she'd felt that morning, as though the previous night had never ended. When she learned that the feeling wasn't just an illusion, she once again took a deep, weary breath. After all, that banquet of filthy vultures circling Kinzo's property was still going on. Perhaps they're still discussing. This seems really unlikely. This seems like a huge stretch, but okay.
ゴーダを呼び戻さなくてはいつまでも朝食の準備が整いません。
ってことはなんや、兄さんたちの話し合いはまだ続いとるんか。
She had planned to say it in a small voice, but Hideyoshi overheard Natsuki and managed to grasp the situation.
兄さんもルドルフも
兄さん。
ローザの場合は若さかしら。私たち夕べの24時過ぎにはもう眠くてベッドに戻らせてもらったんだけど、確かにあの時点でもまだ兄さんたちは熱論を交わしてたわ。男って熱くなると嫌ね。
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, it's so fun. Yeah, I know, it's just instinctive for me to do the imitation. It's so easy and fun. Natsuki snorted, her face still blank.
カノン、表を探してらっしゃい。ゴーダを見つけたらすぐに戻って朝食の準備をするよう伝えなさい。
かしこまりました。
夏日姉さん、 表とは限らないわよ。お父様の書斎ってことはないかしら？
I don't think they're getting into Kinza's room. That thing's like got an automatic lock on it.
なるほど。考えられん話やないで。
Like it's got that desk button that
ど
it
ういう
mentioned.
話の流れかはわからんが、お父さんの主催に場所を移して、お父さんにも混じってもらって議論を続けて
I
る
don't think they're
っ
in
ていう可能
Kinza's
性
room.
は十分あるやろ。
そのような汚らわしい話題を好んでお父様が書斎へ招き入れることなど考えられません。
Yeah, that Kinza's room is like a fucking nuclear bomb shelter.
あらそう。
Ah, so. Ojo-samas are such a gender mood. It's so true.
じゃあ仕方ないわね。
Ojo-sama is its own unique gender identity. It doesn't matter what your sex is. You can be Ojo if you choose to.
源氏さんとカノン君は申し訳ないけど、外を探してきてちょうだい。確かに兄さんなら頭を冷やす
I don't know, that's a
外を
little
散歩
strange
し
in
よ
the
う
middle
なん
of a
て言い出しても
typhoon.
不思議はないわ。
I wouldn't
たとえ
suggest
こ
that.
んな天気で
I
も
like
ね
the sound of rain, but I don't like being outside pounded by it.
私はお父様の書斎に行ってくるわ。ひょっとするとそこにいるかもしれないしね。
客人であるエヴァさんにそこまでのご足労はおかけできません。
No, I want to go look, not
私は
you.
行ってきます。朝のご挨拶も兼ねて。
あら、じゃあ
あら
お願いするわね。でも朝の挨拶を交わしてくれるかは疑わしいわね。夏日姉さんってお父様とは仲
I don't
よろし
think-
かったかしら？
I have a feeling Natsu hasn't talked to Kinzo in like actual year. In like a long time, like
仲
actual
の良い
years.
かは分かりかねますが、後ろ宮家の跡継ぎの妻を許されるだけの信頼を得ていると確信しています。
ならきっと返事くらいはしてくれるわね。
La.
お父様とは朝食くらいご
Yeah,
一緒
he was
したい
just
の。
basically telling Natsu to take a long walk off a short pier.
ぜひ降りてきてくださるよ。説得してくれないかしら？
She's such a bitch. I love her.
私たちはすっかり嫌
I
わ
love
れちゃって
horrible
るみ
MILFs
たいだけど、
minions.
そこまで信頼を得ている夏日姉さんの言うことなら聞いてくれそうですもの。そこまで短歌を切ってお父様を説得できず、信頼を得ているなんて二度と言えないかもね。
What a giggle, giggle, giggle.
自信はありませんが、努力はします。
I love trapping my alleged loved ones into impossible situations that will make them look bad no matter what. Natsuhi responded, looking discouraged. However, knowing Kinzo's temperament, she had absolutely no confidence in her ability to bring him out. Eva was clearly mocking her, confident that Natsuhi wouldn't be able to get Kinzo to come down. But even so, Natsuhi would lose face if she gave up, saying it was impossible and letting Eva go instead. Eva's mean-spirited and unreasonable demand made Natsuhi clench her fists slightly. When Genji realized this, he softly spoke to her over her shoulder.
奥様、よろしければこれをお持ち
Oh, what's this? Is this the key to Kinzo's room?
それは
Oh, it is. Nice guy Genji. He's like trying to help her out. It was the key to Kinzo's study. The study had an auto lock and couldn't be unlocked as long as Kinzo forbade entrance. However, since Genji was especially trusted by Kinzo, he was allowed to carry a key to that door.
でもこの鍵を使ったらあなたも咎めを受けるのではありませんか？
親方様は深くお休みになられていると
God, I hope he's just asleep. I don't want him to
扉
yell
を
at me.
叩くくらいではお耳に届かないこともございます。それに親方様にお部屋を出ていただくよう説得
It's
する
difficult to get him to do anything, I've
ぜ
noticed.
ひお使いください。
源氏。
Until now, Natsuhi had thought of Genji as a cold servant who wouldn't do anything for her since he worked directly under Kinzo. But it looked like he would have to alter her understanding of him. She wanted to communicate her gratitude, but by then, Genji had already turned his back on her and was walking down the corridor with Kanon. But as Natsuhi watched them go, the words directed at her from behind were sneering.
じゃあお父様を必ず連れてきてね。息子のかわいい嫁の言うことですもの。きっと聞いてくれるわよ。
I'm sure he'll listen to her. Kinzo's definitely known for listening to people.
私たちは客人だから、ここでのんびりくつろがせてもらうわ。
予算買えば口が過ぎるで。
Even Hideyoshi's like, all right, let's dial it down a notch
す
too.
まんが夏日姉さん、お父さんのことをよろしく頼むわ。
Without answering, Natsuhi forcefully spun around on her heels and quickly left that place. After all that excitement the previous night, there was no way anyone was going to wake up early. George Aniki, Jessica, and I were snoring loudly on the beds in the cousins' room, but Maria, who had gone straight to bed without joining in, was completely awake. She's still sad nobody believed her about Beatrice. As she rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked around, she was met with the loud snoring of the other three cousins. For a while, Maria had to think about what had happened. After that, she realized that her mother wasn't with her and she quickly got lonely. Maria left the cousin's room, trying to head to the room that had been arranged for her and her mother. Paying no heed to the three who were sleeping soundly, she slammed the door shut. I've never seen Rosemon before. I'm not super knowledgeable in Digimon. I do want to watch more sometimes though. I've only seen it was a long time ago when it was just on TV. You know, I received the TV signals on the moon, and so I only caught episodes here and there of I think it was just Adventure and the Henshin one. I will take a look at Rosemon later, and I will give an appropriate response to her MILFness. In response, Battler mumbled and rolled over in his sleep, but it wasn't enough to wake him up. After a while, Maria returned, once again opening the door with a lively bang. When she had left the room, her face had been sleepy, but now she was back, she looked irritated. After that, she climbed up on Battler's bed, which happened to be the closest, and started yelling and jumping on it like it was a trampoline. Very, very cool, Maria. Thank you. Oh yeah, the one written by the Lane guy who's gone a little crazy. Yeah, I know. After making sure I was awake, Maria moved over to George Aniki's bed and started jumping on that too. In that manner, the three of us were all greeted with an extremely pleasant awakening.
ありがとう、マリアちゃん。起こしてくれたんだね。僕たちは夕べが遅かったから寝坊しちゃったのを起こしてくれたんだね。でも、もう少しだけ起こし方を優しくしてくれると完璧だったかな。
ジョージ兄さんは本当に大人だよ。尊敬するぜ。
You're much nicer than I would have been.
もうすぐ7時なんだな。
Yeah, if I was woken up this way, I would have just backhanded that child across the room. And then gone back to sleep. George is much more patient than I would. The remake of the 2020 remake of the first anime, right? Rosemon 50 feet tall. Well, now you got your guys into giantesses. Listen, I have some sympathy for Maria's situation, but if a screaming child wakes me up at 7 in the morning, I will commit acts of violence and I will not feel remorse. I will give children a little bit of rope, but not that much. Maria kept groaning, and looked unhappy. She didn't exactly seem lonely because her mother wasn't around. It was more like she was irritated and thrown off balance because her mother wasn't where she'd expected. If we could just tell her where her mother was, that alone would probably calm her down. But unfortunately, we had no way of knowing where Aunt Rosa was, except that she wasn't here. I'm sure everything will be fine. She's one of our missing MILFs, but I'm sure she's okay.
マリア、一緒に屋敷へ行こうぜ。きっとローザおばさんもそうこさ。
おママはお屋敷なら行く。お
そうだね。お屋敷に行こうか。多分親たちはもう
I'm sure everybody's okay. They all know it. Everybody's fine. Maria regained her usual composure so completely, her earlier tantrum now seemed like a lie. We got dressed, left the room, and headed for the mansion. Bong, 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 bong. Once more, there was a knocking sound on the study door, but there was no answer. He seemed to be sleeping still, and I could not wake him. If she went back downstairs and did something like that, Eva would probably be amused and triumphant. And even putting Eva aside, it was problematic that Kinzo had stayed shut away during this entire once-a-year conference, not even coming down to greet anyone. Even the head family, no, especially the head family, couldn't fail to make an appearance. I wonder if I can convince him myself. Natsuya readied herself and used the key that she'd borrowed from Genji to open the door. Oh boy, I wonder what will be on the other side. I wonder what we'll see. Even though she was prepared for the sweet stench which seemed to eat into one's brain as it poured out the small crack in the door, she couldn't help but grimace. Thinking that he might still be sleeping, Natsuya entered the room quietly. Oh, I thought he would be dead. He's fine. When she did, Kenzo was already awake and looking down at the window.
お目覚めでしたか。おはようございます。
どうやって入ったのか。
Kinzo spoke with his back still facing her. His voice was not harsh, but calm, and Natsuhi was slightly reassured. However, though he was awake, he wouldn't have ignored all that knocking if he was in a good mood. Natsuhi wasn't able to relax.
申し訳ございませんでした。
I thought he would be dead, honestly.
源氏さんにお願いして。
I'm waiting for somebody to show up dead. Why hasn't it happened yet? Oh.
元気がか。我が友がそれに足ると思ったならば、話を。
Just my guy best friend for like 50 years.
して、私に何言おうか。
はい。もうじき朝食の準備が整いますが、ぜひお父様にもおいでいただきたく思いまして。
朝食はここで取る。
No, I don't want to leave.
いつものように運ばせるがいい。
I'm an old rich man. I can finally embrace the neat life.
しかしお父様、年に一度の親族会議です。せめてお顔をお見せになってください。
下に降りて私の死後遺産をどのように
I mean, that is probably what they're doing, to be fair. That is probably what they would be doing.
バカらしい。
That's literally like all they've talked about this whole time.
そのような話は私を抜きで好きに進めるがいい。 そしてそれが親族会議だというなら、私がこの部屋を出るほどの価値はない。私は忙しいのだ。
Yeah, Cooper thing. I like fully expect. I keep expecting someone to show up dead. And I'm like disappointed every time it seems like it's gonna happen.
叶うでない。
Leave me alone. His last words carried the threat that any further questions would not be appreciated. Natsuhi realized that adding any further pleas would finally bring his wrath down upon her. She didn't look forward to facing Eva's sarcasm, but there was nothing more that Natsuhi could do. She looks like she's gonna cry.
わかりました。みんな残念がるでしょうが、そう伝えます。
Natsuhi decided to give up. Bowing silently, she tried to leave the room before Kinzo's spasmodic temper could flare up. As she did, Kinzo spoke to her. His voice was so calm and gentle, it felt like it came from an entirely different person.
夏日、後ろ宮の家に嫁ぎ、もう随分。
Is he finally gonna say something nice to her? It never felt like he had anything nice to say about Natsuhi.
後ろ宮を名乗ることを許されてから、もう随分になります。
前の家が恋しくなることもあるか。
いいえ、嫁ぐとは成果を捨てること。
That's a lie, but okay.
私は後ろ宮夏日。帰る家も懐かしむ家も、すべてはこの後ろ宮の家のみです。
I think that's a lie. She truly wasn't exaggerating. Such was the resolve she felt whenever she applied the Ushirimiya family name to herself. And that's precisely why she was so saddened when her husband didn't treat her like an Ushiromiya, leaving her to race about in vain.
クラウスが女で、お前がその夫であったなら。いや、それは言うまい。
You wouldn't have any reason to cope and see, this is how that sentence would have ended.
それはどういう意味ですか、お父様。
Natsuhi was shocked. If Kinzo's words were what they seemed, it would have been more than enough to make up for all she'd suffered up to that point.
忘れよ。年寄りのざれ言だ。
Kinzo once again faced away from her. He told her to forget it, but Natsuhi couldn't help feeling a warmth in her heart.
お父様、この夏日は血はつながらずともお父様の娘です。
It's so fucked up that she's like, this is the closest thing to something nice somebody has said to me in this entire marriage.
後ろ宮家の名誉も栄光も、そしてお父様が残されたものもすべて、この夏日が必ずや守ってみせますから。
お前に片翼のわしをまとう資格はない。しかし、お前の心には確かに
That's good enough,
片
right?
翼のわしが刻まれている。
You don't actually need like recognition or anything.
ならばお前は間違いなく我が血族で後ろ宮家の栄光を引き継ぐものだ。お前の衣服にわしがないことを嘲笑う者もいよう。しかしそれに耳を貸すことはない。心にわしを持つ者だけが真の私の血族なのだ。
This is like the nicest Kinzo has ever been to someone.
お前を後ろ宮家に迎えられたことを今は光栄に思っている。
Also, he like insulted her privately a little bit ago. I don't know what changed. Oh, we've confirmed that she and Kraus sleep in different beds. Genji said he went to a different room to wake up Kraus and he wasn't there. So she doesn't sleep with Kraus. At least, and they live here, so it's not like it's because they're guests. Yeah, this is what Kinzo sounds like when he's sober for once, I guess. Without saying anything more, Kinzo remained with his back to Natsuhi. However, Natsuhi couldn't help but feel something warm well up inside her that she hadn't felt since long ago, when she had just been a child. Natsuhi bowed silently to his back and left the room.
あら、ちょう
あら
どいいタイミングだったわね。お父様の様子はどう？あんまり遅いから様子を見に来ちゃったのよ。
You more like came to rubberneck. When Natsuhi left the study, she saw Eva climbing the stairs and their eyes met. Eva was smirking unpleasantly, thinking that Natsuhi would leave drudgingly after failing to convince Kinzo. However, the way Natsuhi was now, such a frivolous laugh would not disturb her. She was not permitted to wear the family crest on her clothing, but she was permitted to wear it in her heart. So she spoke calmly, clearly, and confidently, with the dignity of the one who would protect the Ushiromiya family's glory.
お父様は親族会議にはおいでにならないそうです。汚らわしい議題に関心はないと仰せです。
とかなんとか。
She has found her inner girl boss.
お父様を説得できなかったんなら素直にそう言えばいいじゃない。
哀れですね。お父様が嘆かれるお気持ちも
Oh
分か
shit.
ろうというものです。
Get her ass.
それはどういう意味よ。
Natsuhi did not answer. Just as Kinzo had done earlier, she showed Eva her back as she headed down the stairs. Eva finally realized that she was being made fun of, that something had happened to quickly bolster Natsuhi's confidence. Even so, she apparently didn't have the courage to risk Kinzo's wrath. Unable to even knock on the door, she could only click her tongue, make a motion as though scratching at it, and follow after Natsuhi. She literally turns around and like, meow at the door. Kinzo's behind.
それで兄さんたちはいたの？お父様に聞いたの？
聞きそびれましたが、書斎の中にはいませんでし
If
た。
they're not inside the study, they're not there. Come on.
お父様が夫たちの下船な話のために入室を許すこともありえませんから、下に降りて使用人たちが探してくれるのを待ちましょう。朝食は遅れますが、お茶でもいかがです、エヴァさん。
All it took was a single nice thing from Dad to bolster our confidence. I think Natsuhi just has issues.
別に結構よ。
Eva couldn't hide her confusion at the complete difference in Natsuhi's attitude. She was acting so boldly, and while Eva hated to admit it, she had even a sense of dignity about her. Unable to find fault with anything, Eva could only follow Natsuhi back to the parlor. When the two of them returned to the parlor, Hideyoshi had been joined up by the 4 children and Nanjo. Genji, who had been talking with Hideyoshi, reported the current situation when he noticed that Natsuhi had returned.
主人たちはまだ見つからないのですか？
はい。
They're gone.
申し訳ございません。あと、熊沢が朝食の準備に入りました。
They're all gone.
もう少し時間をいただきたいとのこと。
I bet she's making mackerel. That's her whole thing. The clock read a little past 8. 8 should have been the time to start breakfast. Normally, going over that time limit would be a disgrace to the host.
今、カノンが表を探しています。それから。
Oh, there's... Yep, okay, that's 6. Remember, it said, like, on the first Twilight, 6 sacrifices, didn't it?
シャノンまで？まったく、主人は何人を従えて散歩に出かけたのですか？
Just how many people had gone missing by now? Now that the number was this large, it was starting to feel truly unpleasant, as though the people here were the only ones being left out of something interesting. I can check the epitaph in the tip section? Oh. Oh, I sure can. Yeah, offer the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. So we've got 6 people missing. Oh, and you can read Beatrice's letter, too. Neat. Neat. I remember that one pretty well. It was basically like a more legalese version of the poem. Yeah, chosen by the key. Natsuhi had Kinzo's key, the one Genji gave her. So it's probably that key. And because of that. At least blah blah. At least that seemed to reflect the feelings of the children, and Maria in particular. She was indignant, her stomach grumbling, almost as though her mother and the others had left her alone to go off and eat something delicious without her. The other children were flipping through the channels on the television, trying to find a program that might interest Maria and cheer her up again. Nanjo was sitting on the sofa, gazing blissfully at the children while reading a book. It must have been a book about chess. The sound of footsteps came rushing towards them with a pitter-patter. There was only one set, so they realized before seeing who it belonged to that it was probably Canon, not Kraus and the rest.
奥様、失礼します。
その様子では見つけられなかったようですね。
申し訳ございません。まだ。
もう十分です。ご苦労をかけました。
Yeah, where could they all have gone? She didn't know where they were, but they had to be somewhere on this island. Where could they all have gone? Seriously. I at least want to see the bodies. Come on. They hadn't had a thing to eat since the previous night, so their stomachs must be growling about now. They'd probably come plodding back on their own accord before long. By now, Natsuyu was thoroughly exasperated and started to feel that there was no reason for them to go out of their way and search.
私はお客様方にお茶のご用意をしに厨房へ行きます。二人とも早朝からご苦労様でした。
Natsuhi left the parlor, acting as though the release in tension had caused a new surge in her headache. Canon tried to call her back, but Natsuhi left swiftly.
どうした？まだ何かあるのか？
Ooh, spicy?
旦那様方のお姿を見つけることはできませんでしたが。
Oh, who do we find?
その。
Oh, what is it? Please tell me. Canon sounded evasive. It looked as though he didn't know where they were, but had spotted something that might be connected to their disappearance. Eva and Hideyoshi noticed this exchange of words and came over. They'd probably picked up on something strange in Canon's behavior.
どうしたんや、カノン君。クラウス兄さんたちは見つかったんか？
実はバラ庭園の倉庫の様子がおかしいのです。
様子がおかしいというのはどういう意味だ？
それがその。
Come on, spit it out. Spit it out.
なんと説明すればいいのか。
Canon hesitated once more. Oh, it's really drawing this shit out. Come on. His tone wasn't at all what you'd expect from this usually fearless boy. Why has no one mentioned the blood on Natsu's door? Well, Genji probably can't, right, under orders. Like, if not, he figures if Natsu doesn't bring it up, he shouldn't, and Natsu doesn't want to bring it up around the people who would make fun of her. Seeing this, Eva and Hideyoshi looked at each other dubiously.
どういうこと？倉庫の中に兄さんたちがいたんじゃないの？
Uh-oh.
いえ、中は。
Has he not been on the inside?
その鍵を取りに戻ったところなのですが、その。
ようわからんが、とにかく中を調べれば
Oh boy,
いいだけの話
this
じ
is
ゃない
gonna
か。
be good. Now this is gonna be good. I'm convinced now that we're gonna see a dead body finally.
その倉庫の鍵はどこにあるんや？
使用人室にあります。すぐに中を確かめましょう。
Show me the blood. Show me the blood. Canon dashed off to the servant room and returned with the key. Genji left the parlor, saying that he would go check, but then Eva and Hideyoshi followed after him. What was this something strange about the storehouse that had caused the usually fearless Canon to hesitate? It was still pouring outside, but perhaps their curiosity over this something that Canon couldn't talk about won out. While the children made a big fuss watching television, Canon and the rest dashed over to the entrance. Oh, I'm so excited! The Rose Garden storehouse was a place that housed various tools used to manage the garden. You modded Dissidia, so now you're ready to kill Virgil with Hatsune Miku? Hell yes. It was definitely not a pretty building. Because of its appearance, it had been built so that it was hidden in a corner of the rose garden. Kanon, Genji, Eva, and Hideyoshi came cutting across the rose garden holding umbrellas. They entered a small path just off the rose garden, which was normally off limits for those appreciating the garden and only used by those maintaining it. As they dashed down that, the storehouse came into view in front of them. Ooh, 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 ooh. Show me the money. It was quite an old shed, and compared to the flawlessly perfect beauty of the rose garden, it was pretty seedy looking. It was easy to understand why it had been built in a hard-to-see place. Eva and Hideyoshi arrived at the storehouse long after Genji and Kanon. I'm fat and old.
カノン君たちは早いな。わしは心臓が爆発しそうや。
こんなところに倉庫なんか建ててたのね。
I also wish Dissidia had a good sequel. NT definitely doesn't count, we all know that.
何よそれ。
Oh, show me. I need it. When Eva looked where Kanon was pointing, she was at a loss for words. Noticing this, Hideyoshi also followed Kanon's finger and was likewise too shocked to speak. The entrance to the storehouse was a kind of shutter. And there, everyone suddenly realized why Kanon had been unable to find words to describe what they now saw. On the shutter, which was completely filthy from being exposed to wind and rain for so long, stuck right on it. Oh, yes! Oh, I've been waiting for this. Yes. There was something that looked like a strange, dark red liquid, mucus, or maybe with some sticky paint. An indescribably eerie shape was drawn on the shutter with some kind of ghastly substance. What's that smell? It's blood. Enough to make a man sick. There's an edit of the scene in the anime that replaces the magic circle with the cool ass. Hell yeah. The rain had caused it to drip down like fresh blood, leaking from an open wound. No more beating around the bush. Some kind of mark was drawn there, with a ghastly substance that looked like blood, in a shape that seemed to suggest something ominous. 2 circles were drawn there, and inside them was a design that looked like a cross. The 4 ends of the cross were widely exaggerated, and it looked like some kind of crest from somewhere around Europe. It's gonna be like Resident Evil 8, where it's actually the umbrella logo. And in the cracks between these shapes, written closely packed together, were some unfamiliar characters or possibly symbols.
なんちゅう悪趣味な落書きや。これ、あれか。悪魔の儀式とかの
Yes.
魔法寺いうやつとちゃうか。
Mahoji! It wasn't surprising that Hideyoshi would say that about such a ghastly shape drawn with a deep red dripping substance.
これいつ書かれたの？
昨日雨が降り出す前にここに来ましたが、その時には
他の方々の目に触れる前に何とかしよう。ご覧になられたらご不快になられる。
I'll say, it's a discomforting sight.
そうね。
Not for me, I'm not scared. It's just like, you know, for people like these, it's
ただの倉
discomforting.
庫小屋とはいえ、こんな気持ち悪い落書きを1秒たりとも放置したくないわ。
Okay, open the shed
倉
now.
庫の中に塗料もあります。
I need to see inside, come on.
応急処置でとりあえず塗り消し
No, open the shed first, come
天
on.
気のいい日に改めて塗装しましょう。
Genji remembered that he had just recently seen another scribble, and that it too had been made with a strange, dark red substance of the same color as this. That must have been... That's right, he had seen it on the door to Natsuhi's room.
カノン君、さっさとこの落書きを消して戻りましょう。たとえ倉庫とはいえ、実家の落書きは本当に腹立たしいわ。
はい、すぐに済ませますので。
Kanon squatted in front of the shutter and unlocked it. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! He then lifted it up with all of his strength. Show me the money! A boisterous noise resounded, and the eerie shape drawn on the shutter began to get sucked in through the top as the shutter was raised. At least for the time being, that ominous drawing disappeared from their direct gaze, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Until... Come on. Ah! God! You bastard. You bastard. I wanted to see it. Thanks to a kids program they came across, Maria was feeling much better. I'm being edged here. Come on. Battler and Jessica were poking fun at the kids show at every turn, cackling together. They're watching the Muppets. George was enjoying the program with Maria from her perspective. Nanjo sat on a sofa by himself, passing the time by reading quietly. They heard hurried footsteps coming from the hallway. They were the footsteps of a single person. Did that mean it wasn't the group of 4 that had just left? It was Genji. It was very rare for Genji, who considered being out of breath a violation of a servant's virtues, to be gasping for air. He had probably come dashing back from outside the mansion. His shoulders were soaking wet, and he didn't have his usual trim appearance. When Genji noticed Nanjo looking at him, he gave a small, silent bow and quickly approached him.
Nanjo sensei, 申し訳ございません。至急お越しください。何事ですかな?
Come on! Stop edging me! As Genji whispered something into Nanjo's ear, Nanjo went pale. He rose from the sofa, trying not to be noticed by the children, who were still engrossed by the TV. And the two of them rapidly left the parlor, muffling their footsteps. Just as they were about to exit the parlor, they came across Natsuhi, who was pushing a serving cart loaded with a tea set. Genji whispered something in Natsuhi's ear, and Natsuhi went pale too, in apparent shock. Then, leaving the serving cart where it was, the 3 of them dashed towards the entrance. George noticed them running down the rose garden throughout the window.
なんだろう。源氏さんと南條先生と、あれは夏日おばさんかな。
どうしたんだよ、兄貴。
何かあったのかな。
Show me the goods.
ひどい慌てようだったね。
When Jessica and Maria saw that Eva, Hideyoshi, and Nanjo were no longer in their seats and that the serving cart had been abandoned in the entrance to the parlor, they also realized that something was the matter.
何か事故でもあったとか？
行ってみようぜ。俺たちだけのけ者なんて面白くねえしな。
Yeah, that's the spirit. For some reason, what Battler said sounded extremely indiscreet. They couldn't deny that they were a little insecure and concerned after seeing the adults run off into the rain without regards to their appearance.
行ってみようぜ。
Battler's a curious type. He definitely wants to go check it out. Let's check it out.
何があったか気になるぜ。
Jessica's uneasy words spoke for all of them.
おい、マリア。
Oh yes, please do bring the 9-year-old with you.
それともテレビを見てるか？
おお、マリアはテレビがいい。おお。
僕たちだけで行こう。
All
マリア
right.
ちゃん、すぐ戻るからね。
I thought it would have been funny, but I understand.
テレビを見て待ってるんだよ。
No one's left to stop them. They all went out to the storehouse. By the time the kids made it outside, the adults were no longer in sight. But Jessica seemed to have a pretty good idea where they'd gone, judging by the direction they'd been running. Following Jessica, we ran through the rain-soaked garden. The wind seemed to suddenly get stronger. The malicious sound of thundering began to ring out like it had the previous night. Felt like an eerie something had surrounded the island and was trying to stop us from moving forward.
Jessica, この先には何があるんだ？
確か園芸道具なんかの倉庫があったはずだぜ。
そんなところに一体何があるんだろうね。
Oh, the tension. It's at a breaking point. I feel like I'm gonna snap. Just as Jessica had said, they began to see a storehouse in front of them. They could also see the adults there. The shutter to the storehouse was open, and several adults looked as though they were searching for something. For some reason, only Natsuki was outside the storehouse. Without even holding an umbrella, she looked like she was hanging at her head, and her back was facing them. There was Genji, Nanjo, and Natsuki, who had just left the mansion. The ones who left earlier, Kanon, Eva, and Hideyoshi were also there, making for a small crowd of people. But there was absolutely no bustle of activity. When Natsuki realized that the children were approaching, a terrible expression rose to her face, and she ran at them with her arms spread wide. Oh, I wonder why. No, show me what's inside. Do it. Show the children. But despite that, no, because of that, the kids saw the scene Natsuki was trying to keep them away from. Yes! Inside the storehouse with its shutter wide open, a faint fluorescent light shone down. And right there was... Kill! Oh shit, this music. That was actually perfectly timed. I didn't expect this music to suddenly kick in and go hard. Jessica's piercing shriek rang out, but that was just because Jessica's scream was the loudest. The same thing spilled out of Badler and George's mouths as well. Is this what this song is named? Golden Slaughter? Eva spread her arms just like Natsuki, roaring at the kids with the bone-chilling expression on her face. This is a good song, I like this. When Natsuki spread her arms, I thought she was trying to prevent us from advancing any further. Why does this go so hard? Oh my god. But that wasn't why Eva was spreading her arms right now. She was trying to stop us kids from seeing that terrible scene. Wow, 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 wow. It was her mother's heart trying to protect the eyes and hearts of us children by blocking our view of that terrible scene by at least the width of her own arms. Is this some kind of a joke? Is it? Oh, that voice was just delayed for some reason. I'd seen this kind of cheap scene all too often. In manga, TV, anime, and movies, I'd seen it over and over again. This was just seeing something appear in real life that I'd been seen plenty of times before in some of those more sensational movies, right? This scene is super fucking gory in the manga, by the way. I bet. Ooh. That alone shouldn't... but that suit. It's that old bastard's, isn't it? I get it, then. That's Uncle Kraus. And Kyrie-san. And Aunt Rosa. They're all dead. Just the voice acting is good. Wow, that hurt my ears a little bit, but it's still good. So it's been dead for a while. Yeah. So these bodies are like totally eviscerated then, right? Like they're not even just stabbed, they're like cut into pieces and stuff. I can check the family dossier for new entries on all the deaths. Ooh, let's look. Nope. Nothing about his death. Nothing quite yet. Oh, not yet? Okay. Well, don't tell me to check something when it's not actually time for it. Come on. You silly minions, you. Aunt Natsuki caught Jessica in her arms, and Aunt Eva caught George Aniki. So I was the only one who could approach the entrance to the storehouse. Ah, if only there had been someone there to catch me, too. I wouldn't have needed to have this horrible, evil scene burned into my eyes. No, that's not it. It isn't that there's no one here to catch me. The people who should catch me, they're right there, aren't they? Just as Jessica said, it did look like a storehouse for gardening tools. A lawnmower with extra blades, a grass sickle and a hammer, some carpentry tools such as a saw. Oh boy, those are all things you could murder people real good with. Piled up potted plants and bags of fertilizer. And treated just like the same, the corpses of several people had been laid to rest there. No, had been tossed in there. I could tell them by their clothes. That old bastard and Kyrie-san. Oh, rip. Uncle Kraus and Aunt Rosa. We lost 2 MILFs, gentlemen. This is a sad day. Beyond that, Goda-san and... Are there still more of them? How many people died? You're fucking kidding me. I can't even count them on one hand. Damn it! I don't know whether it had been one of these gardening tools, which if used for something other than their intended purpose could definitely be wielded with a naked brutality, or whether some horrible tool had been brought in here specifically for this. Anyway, each one of the bodies jammed in here had been given in an atrocious makeup. It wasn't makeup, it was more like their faces had been plowed. Their faces were smashed, forced into expressions that normal people couldn't even make after death. I couldn't tell where the eyes or the noses were, but I couldn't find their mouths, because they were gaping wide, their gums exposed. But their front teeth were missing, and even the cheeks that should have covered all this were all torn up and laid bare. Wanna know how I got these scars? That trendy makeup you always spent so much time on, even though you're a man, isn't doing a thing now. Very good, thank you, Daisuke. Oh no. Oyaji!
てめえは絶対地獄行きだとは思ってたぜ。でもよ、ここまでじゃねえだろ。ここまでひでえ目に遭わされるほどの悪党じゃなかっただろうがよ。
Yeah, plowed is a really gross way to describe, like, a wound. Yeah, we got one battler scream. I know there's supposed to be a lot of those.
キリエさんもさ、こんな男と付き合うのはやめろって言ったんだ。あんたまでそこまで目に遭わされる理由は何もねえじゃねえかよ。顔がねえ。顔がねえよ。クソクソクソクソ。
Oh, there's another good one.
バトラさん、これ以上見てはいかん。こんな姿をお父さんもお母さんもあんたに見せたいわけがない。
Well, it's too late for that, buddy.
お父さんとお母さんの
They
た
got
め
no
にこれ以
faces.
上見てはいかん。
死者ってのは安らかに眠る顔ってやつを拝ませてくれるんじゃねえのかよ。顔がねえんだよ。俺の親父とキリエさんの顔がねえんだよ。
Why is this required viewing? Let me look at this. What is this? Is this a clip from the patchy slot version? Ah! Oh, I see. It's funny. Hang on. All right, I'll show it. Hang on. pretty good. That's pretty good. Their faces. Their faces.
どういう顔して死んじまったのか。なんだよ俺は。親父たちのことを思い出すときはこのくちゃくちゃの化け物みてえな顔をいつも思い出せたのかよ。そいつが最高だぜ。
Congrats on your horrible trauma, Battler.
とした顔を思い出さなくていいんだからよ。最高だぜ最高だぜ。でもよ。
Yeah, Kyrie was nice.
綺麗さが悪党じゃねえ。前にはムカつくと思ったけどよ。ちょいとかっこいい俺の姉貴分だったお人じゃねえかよ。こんなのってねえよ。クロスおじさんなんかまだマシじゃねえか。顔面じゃなくて側面だぜ。少なくとも
Never eating pussy in the Bronx again. He get turned into Two-Face.
まだマシだぜまだマシだぜ。
I don't know. Jessica doesn't seem to agree. Jessica filled her ears with the sound of her own screaming, trying to shut out my reckless words. Battler, please stop describing the horrible crime out loud to your family. Disregarding age and appearance, I fell to my knees, clinging to Anaki's waist and sobbing. It was as if I was crying on behalf of everyone there. Representing the feelings of everyone there, I screamed over and over. Well, that's the end of that scene. That was the scene. That was good. Oh, I love some good old-fashioned extravagant murders. I was fine. I was so excited for murders to happen, and it didn't disappoint.
倒れているのはクラウスおじさん、ルドルフおじさん、キリエおばさんにローザおばさん。
Now the tips will have updated.
5人。
Just those 5? Are you sure? All right, let's look. Oh yeah, they're all fucking wow. Look at that. Ushiromiya Kraus. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it seems the side of his head was smashed after his death. This is the beginning of everything. Ushiromiya Rudolph. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after death. He has a right to lament his ill fortune. Ushiromiya Kirie. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after death. She was chosen by the demon's roulette. That's all there is to it. Ushiromiya Rosa. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. Her face seems to have been smashed after her death. I'll get to see her again, so I don't feel lonely. Servant Goda. His corpse was found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. His face seems to have been smashed after his death. How unfortunate. Apparently, he was originally supposed to be on duty in the guest house. Well, there you go. Does the pachinko art show any gruesome? That is a good question. It's not like... It's just like... Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, there's only 5. Shannon's still missing. And we know the first Twilight needs 6 sacrifices.
Yeah.
Ah, here we go. The other penny drops. Sorry, George. Your creepy relationship is at an end. The body Hideyoshi was looking down on now happened to be hidden among the shadows in that mountain range of objects, in a blind spot to George, who stood by the entrance. So George couldn't tell whose body it was. So George cursed himself. He cursed the fact that his worst guesses always turned out to be right.
じゃあお父さんの足元に倒れているのはシャノンなんだね。
ああ、シャノンちゃんや。
That's the sound of it updating, right? Yeah, there it is. Servant Shannon. Her corpse was found inside the Rose Gordon storehouse. It seems the side of her head was smashed after her death. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in the Golden Land. Crash. I love the ridiculous crashing sound when you unpause. George fell completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. Normally, he would have wanted to run to his beloved's body, screaming and crying. Yeah, they're all going to become Eldritch players. That's why they had to die. They were Eldritch players. They're all going to be revived in the Golden Land. We're going to summon them out of the graveyard. Do I have theories on what happens / who killed them? I mean, the only culprit right now is Beatrice. I feel like if, as far as culprits go, I don't feel like it was any of the people here. It's probably Beatrice. But I mean, that could very easily change as more information reveals itself. Like, I know there's more characters. I know there's more characters than what we've seen so far. There's no such thing as witches? Yeah, but there's such a thing as crazy women named Beatrice who would murder people. Like, is the argument going to be denying the existence of Beatrice entirely, or just that she's a witch? Because those are two very different things. However, before rashly rushing forward, he worked to keep his composure and asked his father,
シャノンもクラウスおじさんたちと同じなのかな。
Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, so he couldn't give George an immediate answer. Or rather, he felt that silence was the only sincere and loving response he could give George right now. When George asked if Shannon was the same, he meant to ask whether her corpse was in the same condition as the others or not. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant her corpse was in the same brutal state.
シャノンを見てもいいかな。
That's not a good idea.
あかん。どうして？だってもう二度とシャノンの顔を見られないんだよ。
Well, I don't think you're gonna be able to see it now either way. I mean, it's pulped.
その最後の顔どうして見たらいけないんだよ。
お前が最後にシャノンちゃんに会ったのは昨日か。
うん。
そうか。そのシャノンちゃんは別れ際にお前にどんな顔を見せたんや。
素敵な笑顔だったよ。
After he handed her the ring, she hesitated, even though she must have already made up her mind. Then she looked bashful and ran away because she was embarrassed to let him see her face looking like that. That's the expression that was revived in George's mind.
そうか。ならシャノンちゃんもその笑顔をお前に残したいと。
Well, so much for that. I don't think that's gonna work. Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that it'd make anyone want to cover their eyes. Her head had been smashed in from the side and no more than half of her expression remained. If the remaining blood-soaked half of her expression had been wiped clean, would that graceful smile of hers have peeked out? But only half of it. Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hands over his eyes. How brutal. If her face was going to be crushed anyways, and if only all of it had been crushed, he might have been able to temporarily distract George from his pain by making the pathetic suggestion that it was someone else wearing Shannon's clothes. But half of her face had been left untouched, almost like that was on purpose. It caused the body so much humiliation while still proving beyond doubt that the body was Shannon's and no one else's. How inhuman, how brutish. And there, trying his best to burn the image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes as she lay at Hideyoshi's feet, was Kanon. Almost like the half faces serve some sort of purpose. Kanon was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they did not drip down. But that didn't mean he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Losing Shannon, who had lived with him in the same orphanage, whom he had loved as a sister, must have been just the same as losing a blood relative.
ジョージ、シャノンちゃんはきっとありがとう言ってるぞ。お前に恥ずかしいところを見られとうなかったんや。きっとお前が耐えてくれたこと感謝しとるで。
分かってる。分かってるよ、父さん。分かってるよ。
George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, crouching down limply.
父さん、頼みがあるんだ。
なんや。
僕の代わりに見てほしいんだ。シャノンは指に指輪をつけてるかな。
ああ。
指輪？ちょいと見てみる。
Yubi. Hideyoshi crouched down. As he did, Kanon silently pointed to one of Shannon's hands.
ああ、あるで。
Congratulations, George, on the marriage.
これはダイヤの指輪や。クズダイヤとちゃう。なかなかの値打ちもんや。
それはどっちの手のどの指にあるのかな。
と左手の薬指や。そっか、シャノンちゃん婚約しとったんか。
ジョージ、あなたまさか。
Hideyoshi, maybe take a hint here, buddy. Maybe take a hint.
今はそんなん関係ないで。シャノンちゃんは男に将来を約束されたんや。
Hideyoshi, come on, man.
一生を幸せにしちゃると男に言わせたんや。それが誰かは問題と
Oh,
ちゃう
I
で。
see. I see. He's doing it on purpose.
男にそこまで言わしめて女の本懐やないか。いつこの指輪をもらったんかは知らん。誰が渡したかも知らん。だがそれでもシャノンちゃんは指輪をもらえたんや。そしてそれを受け入れ左の薬指に通したんや。指輪を送った男もきっと喜んだんとちゃうか。
To most of the people there, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out nonsense. However, someone who knew of George and Shannon's true relationship would understand the full meaning of those words.
そっか。ありがとう、父さん。
George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, but his expression had returned to its usual calm one.
行こう。バトラ君、ジェシカちゃん。
Yeah, the Hideyoshi's voice actor is really putting in some good work here.
これ以上僕たちがここにいると大人の邪魔になる。
そうだな。
Jessica sniffled once, showing her face to her mother, who had been holding her the whole time, to let her know she was okay now. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual expression, although she still couldn't smile.
バトラー、しっかり。
Battler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies.
すまねえな。がっつり泣いたら落ち着いたぜ。親父の野郎。普段はクソクソ言ってるくせに。ちょっと死んじまったくらいでピーピー泣くんじゃねえぜって笑ってやがら。仕方ねえだろ。親が死んだら泣くように。
That's not really a genetic thing. That's like a normal thing. I get what you're trying to say, though. Battler's face was still bright red from the tears, but he had at least recovered enough to fake a smile, if only a bitter one.
カノン、お前もこれ以上ここにいてはいけません。子供たちを連れてお屋敷に戻っていなさい。
Natsuhi had been standing under the rain this whole time, unable to take a step into the storehouse. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from battlers. Realizing that she had to take on a role of responsibility now that her husband was dead, she gave Kanon those orders. Kanon rose silently and turned to face me. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon, and there was no life in his expression. On an ordinary day, if he had been told to guide the children through the beautiful rose garden, Kanon might have led the way. But now there was no distinction between Kanon and the children. They were now just kids of about the same age, suffering the pain of losing those close to them. After making sure that the children were leaving, Natsuhi started to give orders to Genji.
Genji, すぐに警察に連絡しなさい。
Can't, the phones are down.
台風が通り過ぎるまでは来られないでしょうか。どうすればいいか指示を。
I don't think they can call anyone.
わかりました。防災用の無線機があり
Oh,
ます。
there's a radio. Okay.
それで連絡します。
Genji finds the batteries missing from the radio and just hears cackling. When she heard that, Natsuhi remembered. That's right, the phones were out today, weren't they? However, they also had a radio, since they couldn't necessarily rely on the phones all the time while living on an isolated island. At any rate, they should start by contacting the police and receiving their instructions. Everything else could wait.
Nacho sensei, もうこの場は
No, they're fucking dead. They're dead as a doornail, my lady. There's nothing for Dr. Nanjo to do.
残念ながら私には何もできませんな。
わかりました。源氏、せめて主人たちの顔を何かで覆ってやることはできませんか。このような姿を晒すことは当人にとっても屈辱的でしょうから。
Maybe we can put all their faces together to make one complete face. That sounds reasonable, Pyroboyo. That sounds like a smart, not insane thing to do. Genji picked up several dried-up towels from inside the storehouse, when Eva stopped him with a shrill voice.
ちょっとお待ちなさいよ。ここは犯行現場なんでしょ。なら変に手を加えちゃダメよ。私たちは混乱してて現場に土足で踏み入っちゃったけど、それはきっと警察の捜査の邪魔になったわよ。
Natsuhi glared at Eva, offended. Objectively speaking, Eva was right. Even so, she glared at Eva as though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic corpses, which had been humiliated even after death, the simple kindness of covering their faces. However, Eva had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible situation definitely wasn't an accident. Eva's always on the girl boss grind set. You gotta respect it. You gotta go to bed. Good night, Pyropoyo. Thank you for watching. It was a crime. Someone had killed them. It was a murder case. So they needed to be careful to avoid disturbing the site any further. Okay, so we have the admittance that it is a murder. I can't wait for them to all start pointing fingers at each other. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic drama. They had to do what little they could to aid the police, preserving clues that might help catch the detestable culprit.
私もエヴァさんに賛成ですな。警察が来るまでここは手をつけずにしておくべきです。
奥様、いかがなさいますか。
そうですね。わかりました。ここを閉ざしなさい。それから念のためここに別の施錠をするように。
別の施錠？
ええ。ここに来た時、シャッターの鍵を
Yeah,
閉じて
somehow someone got in while it was
と
locked.
いうことは、シャッターの鍵を使い、犯人が
確かに通りや。
Well, yeah, Goda was sleeping in they said they kept the key in where the servants' quarters, which Goda was sleeping in. So maybe they overpowered Goda, got the key, dragged him in there, and somehow killed everybody else. Actually, that's really hard. Yeah, chosen by the key, right? So we have two keys here. We have Kinzo's, and we have the one to this storehouse.
警察に証拠として提出する価値はあるでしょうけど。
Let me read it again, actually. Yeah, the six chosen by the key. So Kinzo's key was a bit of a misdirect, I guess.
多分カノン君の指紋も付着しちゃってるわよ。そしてその鍵はさっき源氏さんに手渡され、源氏さんも素手で受け取ってる。大した証拠にはなりそうにないわね。
それは不用心でした。申し訳ございません。
源氏さん、この倉庫の鍵は他にもあるんか？
いいえ、この一つだけです。
ということは、犯人はその鍵を使用人室から持ち出し、そして律儀に。
Yeah, it's a pretty wild crime, isn't it? Killing 6 people in the middle of the night all at once. Then dragging them in there. Hideyoshi's theory sounded plausible, but was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go to all the trouble of returning a key they stole? No, if you think about it even more deeply, there are some points that are even more bizarre. When a criminal hides a body, they're usually trying to delay the point at which it'll be found, so they can use that time to escape. The 6 weren't necessarily killed here, but it was reasonable to assume that they were killed somewhere on this island, carried to the storehouse, and hidden to delay the discovery of the crime. Yeah, exactly. That's quite a feat. All 6 of them in one night, dragging them around? And yet, the eerie magic circle scribbled on the storehouse shutter had eloquently indicated the location of the hidden corpses. Sure, it didn't explicitly mention the corpses, but 6 people had gone missing. In that situation, someone had made such an obvious piece of graffiti and even returned the key to the shutter, almost as though they wanted the corpses here to be discovered.
とにかく一度は犯人が開け閉めをした施錠だけでは信用できません。犯人の手からもこの場所を保護する意味で施錠を新たにしたいと言っているのです。
いい案だと思います。私も賛成です。
Genji fished around inside the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock that had been inside a small box.
鍵はどうなさいますか？
私が持ちましょう。責任を持って警察に手渡します。
Natsuhi took the key to the padlock from Genji's hand. Yes, some elaborate plan to get all 6 of those very specific people out there. I don't know. We'll have to unearth more of the circumstances. We have too little information right now, I think, to make any guesses. I need to collect more evidence, like Ace Attorney, you know. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. And so the corpses were once again sealed behind that shutter, which was still covered with that creepy magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. Shutters often have a place in front of where you can attach your own lock in addition to the main lock of the shutter. This was one of those types. In the midst of the roar of the thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there ominously. With its closed shutter still covered in a blood-like creepy substance, it swallowed up the bodies of the 6. To Natsuhi, putting the new lock on wasn't mainly to preserve the scene for the police. She might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity, to prevent that eerie beast from swallowing up any more victims. There's definitely something going on with Kanon, but I don't know if he's a murderer. We know that he's in on whatever Kinzo is talking about.
戻りましたらすぐに連絡します。
The adults left the storehouse. The ghastly magic circle drawn on the shutter kept the 6 bodies in its throat, looming eerily as the lightning occasionally lit it up. A body has been discovered. It's now 9 o'clock. Or 8:45 actually. Yeah, it said at the very start, I don't have to think too hard yet. We're at the very beginning. But I do think that is where we will have to leave off for today. I understand this was a little bit shorter than the previous Umineko stream, and I apologize for that, minions, but unfortunately, I am a busy princess, and I have to get my beauty rest. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm glad we at least got to this point. I think if there was any time to stop for the night, this would be a good point. So, we will continue the drama next week. For sure, hopefully I can stream Umineko a little longer next time. And we can maybe find out more of what's going on with these crazy murders. Or maybe there'll just be more murders. Who knows? It'll be fun. I'm glad I finally got to see some murder. That's what I've been anticipating this whole time. We're gonna go raid Chixama. So go give her a hard time in my place. Thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, be sure to post a lot of my emotes in Chixama's chat, but no Umineko spoilers. Don't do that. That would be rude. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow is the live build with the Modroid Dyna Xenon, so look forward to that. See ya.